No matter how your season goes throughout the course of any football season, college or pro, it's always good to end on a win. Unfortunately for Tennessee and the Vols fans in attendance at the Music City Bowl last night, they were not able to seal the deal against an Illinois team that held them to a season low in total offense at Nissan Stadium. Good morning. We're happy to have you for the final day of 2025. Robert, Lucas, and me with you until 1 o'clock. Lucas is doing double duty today. He'll be back on 3HL with Slay this afternoon. We've got Cosell. We've got Jason Fitz. We're going to talk about the college football playoff, but we do have to start with the way that Tennessee peters out at the end of the season to finish 8-5 with back-to-back losses with Vanderbilt and then Illinois in Nashville last night. You thought they had something when they took the lead with that, 94-yard return touchdown.
Jakeem Dotson.
At that point, the offense was non-existent, and the defense could do nothing against Luke Altmaier and that rushing attack. 615-737-1045. That's the number if you want to participate. How do you feel about the way that this Tennessee season went? You can also interact via Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch in the F&M Bank chat. So I told you, too, that I was going to go to the Music City Bowl with you, and then I flaked. How was it?
Oh, it was very nice. The Titans Radio Suite had all the Hattie B's hot chicken that we could possibly want, which made it an incredible game day experience despite the result. Let me say, first of all, respect to the amount of Illinois fans that showed up at Nissan Stadium.
You questioned their existence.
I did. I questioned their existence. I was not familiar with their game. They were there. They were loud in their dark blue and orange yesterday. So shout out to them for showing up and watching their team win 30-28. And what a weird year for Tennessee that comes to an end. At 8-5, which if you told anybody 8 wins before the season, it would have been like, all right, bridge year, gear up for 2026. But if you tell them that it happened with Tennessee not having a single win against an FBS team with a winning record, it kind of changes the story a little bit. And especially if you add in a layer that, and Joey Aguilar led the SEC in passing and brought Tennessee's offense to heights that it hasn't seen since 2022, then it definitely makes the final result of the season that much more disappointing. At no point this year has Tennessee played complementary football, stringing together all 3 phases, and that was on full display last night.
How many hot dogs?
What do you mean?
How many hot dogs?
Did I eat?
Yes.
2.
Only 2?
But it was because of the spread that the Titans Radio Suite had.
There was so much.
There was literally so much food. I had 2 lettuce wraps. I had Hattie B's wings. I had nachos. I had a fruit spread because we're being healthy. And all you can drink. If you ever want to do something in the Titans Radio Suite, I don't know who the hell you tell them to hit up, but it was a great time. And
Is it Hunter?
Hunter, yeah. But I don't know what his reach outable is.
Probably his email?
Yeah, Hunter at doesthings.com. I don't know, but you should look into it because the Titans Radio Suite was exceptional. It's a great way to watch a game, too. Like you would think it was freezing outside. I was wearing Crocs, no socks. So as we were walking up, I was kind of dying a little bit, but a brisk 69 in the Titans Radio Suite.
The last time I was up there was the Stadium Series for the Preds. I want to say the Preds played the Avalanche. I can't remember exactly who the opponent was, and I can't remember even if the Preds won the game or not. But I bought tickets in the lower bowl for the game, and then I couldn't. The rink was so far away from the actual lower bowl seats that I slid on up to the Titans Radio Suite at a certain point at a much better vantage point. So, yeah, if you get the opportunity to attend any event at Nissan Stadium in said Titans Radio Suite, 10 out of 10, recommend. I'm glad you guys had a good time.
We were cozy and full and satisfied watching Tennessee give up 221 rush yards to Illinois.
I was so full. But the first half was so quick that I had spent like a lot of it eating. Like we didn't eat before we went. We saved our bellies because we knew it was all you could eat.
I was very upset with the two of you about that, by the way.
Why?
Because we went to the house under the impression, you guys came to my house under the impression that we were going to hang there for a little bit and then go get lunch, and then the two of you decided that you were going to fast so that you could eat as many Hattie B's wings, apparently, that were in the Titans radio suite.
God, they were so
hot
good.
chicken Lord and Savior Hattie B's.
They were
good
it's
decision.
like pterodactyl wings. They were massive.
The whole wings are awesome. They might be my favorite thing on the menu. If I wasn't on a grilled chicken kick, grilled tender kick from Hattie B's right now, the wings would probably be my favorite thing on the menu.
The thing that upset me most about the game is I did not try to smuggle more of the food out with me. Like, there were free napkins, too. I should have wrapped up those wings. Like, every time they brought a new one out, take 2 wings, wrap it up for later. We could have had wings for the rest of the year.
That was not the thing that upset me most about the game. But I'm with you.
What
upset you most about the game? Go ahead, since you clearly want to talk about this.
Probably giving up 28 rush yards on 2nd and 3 on that final drive of the game for Illinois, or giving up, what was it, a 12 or 13-yard gain on a 4th and 1 at the end of the game during that game-winning drive, or the fact that Tennessee's offense didn't touch the football for the last 11 minutes, 40 seconds of the game.
It's that one.
My goodness.
That's the stunning part of that result if you're a Vols fan. And again, you had the return touchdown in the middle there, which is why your offense in part didn't see the field. But just a really disappointing ending to the season for Josh Heupel, who, again, I don't think a loss to Illinois in a bowl game where there's opt-outs all over the place makes his seat, red hot or anything like that. But I do think it slightly turns up the level of seat heater under Josh Heupel, just kind of reemphasizing, hey, man, you need to do some meaningful winning in 2026, making a staff change, a meaningful staff change for the first time in your career. Now looking into a season where the quarterback situation is going to be an interesting talking point moving forward, of course. And you, with Josh Heupel's background and kind of the way that, the good things that he's done at Tennessee, and there has been, we can agree, there's been more good than bad for Josh Heupel at Tennessee, given the circumstance that he took over. Yes?
Like 8-4 in a Music City Bowl appearance was like the peak of the Butch Jones era. Sure. Yes, of course. So the fact that we're talking about this as a disappointing season is something.
Also 8-5. But I am looking at Tennessee, and I'm looking at Josh Heupel externally. You can tell me if I'm off base about this from a Vol fan perspective, but I'm thinking that guy needs to get it in gear. Otherwise, people are going to start having legitimate conversations about, is he the right guy or is he just the bridge guy that people thought he might be when he got initially hired?
Oh, of course. Like, if next season is a similar picture where you win 8 to 9 games and there are glaring flaws in, like I said, that lack of complementary football, timely mistakes, untimely penalties on a 3rd and 6 that makes it 3rd and 1 for Illinois in the red zone at the end of the game. If it's somewhat of a repeat, even if it's a little bit better in 2026, people are going to want him fired. This is a huge offseason, biggest by far of his career at Tennessee. Jim Knowles has to fill out his coaching staff on defense. Sounds like there's going to be a ton of turnover there, with the exception of probably Rodney Garner, the D-line coach. And you got to hit the portal and address some needs, including quarterback, defensive line, which struggled yesterday to stop the run up the middle of the field. And they were missing some guys.
And some injuries as well.
Yeah, but they also graduate a ton of guys from the defensive line. There are multiple names that are done playing in the middle of that Tennessee defense. Tyree West, David Hobbs. Like, these guys are moving on. And you were already a little thin there this year. So there's a lot of work to be done on this roster. Tennessee's probably going to go get a running back. I wonder if this is the most Tennessee spends in the portal in the Heupel era. It'll be really interesting to see, and what Jim Knowles' fingerprints on that defense look like. That'll be interesting with the staff changes. But huge offseason ahead for Tennessee and Josh Heupel.
Who feels worse today, Vols fans or USC fans? Because that bowl game between USC and TCU was on late last night. Me and Fitzy were doing the Fox show. And we obviously had that through the end of the game where TCU was able to win it. Just a dreadful effort by USC on defense after we talked. Was that yesterday we talked about USC's defensive coordinator leaving for Penn State?
Yep, for his alma mater.
Yeah, so you had an awful performance as far as missed tackling goes, with USC being in control for the vast majority of the game and letting TCU get back into that game. Lincoln Riley, again, our producers for the Fox show are in Los Angeles, a lot of them USC alums, so they were just moaning and groaning because that is the pro football team of Los Angeles. It's not the Rams. It's not the Chargers. It's USC. And the Lincoln Riley experience, it's not quite the same as the Josh Heupel experience. Josh Heupel has accomplished more at Tennessee than Lincoln Riley has at USC. I mean, I think the greatest accomplishment so far for Lincoln Riley, whilst having the number 1 overall pick at quarterback in Caleb Williams, is a Holiday Bowl win and a Vegas Bowl win.
Yeah, having a Heisman Trophy winner quarterback is pretty much his biggest accomplishment. They gave up, what was it, a 3rd and 20?
Yeah.
Walk-off touchdown at the end. Awesome game. Overtime win for TCU. USC comes up short of a 10-win season. Yeah, pressure is ramped up for Lincoln Riley and for Josh Heupel going into next year.
And then a huge opportunity in, less than an hour from now, right? Vanderbilt in the ReliaQuest Bowl against Iowa. Iowa, perpetual bowl participant, perpetual 8-win football team looking to play, not necessarily spoiler, but just add a 3rd loss onto the Vanderbilt season. And a lot of interesting conversations about Vanderbilt lately, mostly on the legal side of things for what's going on with, did you see that Diego Pavia's legal representation in his eligibility case are now citing the Baylor basketball player as a reason for why the eligibility situation around Pavia and guys like Joey Aguilar should be thrown out. If you can just bring a guy back from an international play as a pro and put him on the Baylor college basketball roster and give him 4 more years of eligibility. Insane.
I mean, might as well. Might as well lean into that. Everything is on the table, it feels like. There are no rules.
So Robert tells me that Vanderbilt is a 5.5-point favorite today against Iowa, who is technically the home team in Tampa. It will be Vandy playing in a postseason bowl game in consecutive seasons for only the 2nd time in program history.
I've got 3.5 points on FanDuel.
Where are you looking, Robert?
I was on Action Network.
Okay.
It was a compilation of a bunch of different spots.
Either way, Vandy favorite. I mean, that's a big enough situation where you might be tempted to take Iowa plus the 5.5 if you can get Iowa plus the 5.5 at that point in time. And we'll see what happens with Vanderbilt today. Obviously, Pavia will be without his top target in tight end Eli Stowers, who has opted out. For draft purposes, of course, he expects to be the top tight end in the draft class, and so he's making his draft preparations. But yeah, it will be interesting to see how Vanderbilt tries to finish their season on a high note after Tennessee just simply can't get the job done. So what we are going to do today, we'll talk a lot of college football playoff today because we do have the second round, the quarterfinal of the college football playoff ahead. We have a huge game tonight. But before we do that, we are going to touch on the Titans a little bit as they get ready to end their season, and this will be the last week that we talk about a Titans game ahead of a Titans game. Why the hell can't Cam Ward get any recognition as an Offensive Rookie of the Year candidate? We're going to dive into that coming up next.
Is this your New Year's Eve playlist?
What a banger.
Is
Crank
this
it up.
how we're ringing in 2026?
Have either of you seen this show yet? It's the John Hamm Apple TV show.
Oh, it's awesome. I love this show.
So that's what this song
it's becoming a meme.
is going viral for. The name of the song, I don't remember. But
It is
there's
Turn the Lights Off by Kato.
Okay, it's funny because Kato wrote this song when? Robert, can you look that up for me? Because I saw a funny meme that he put out, or a funny clip that he put out of him sitting in his office, kind of just checking, the latest Spotify streams. He's like an artist from the 80s.
2010.
Okay, so I'm a little off on that. But somebody who did the bulk of their work in the early 2000s, who's now the biggest song on Spotify because of this John Hamm meme and because of TikTok trends and things like that. If you haven't seen, what's the name of the show?
Your Friends and Neighbors. Excellent show. I
I
think it's fantastic.
I thought it was fine.
I thought it was good.
As soon as I started watching it, it just made me want to watch Mad Men, so I restarted
Okay.
Mad Men, far better John Hamm vehicle than Your Friends and Neighbors.
When you made that exaggerated noise, I was like, I thought you were going to say Mad Men.
Leaping amazing.
Oh, I almost did, honestly. We're gonna really struggle with this today because I'm delirious from lack of sleep. The two of you are probably you don't seem that hungover.
Oh, we're fine.
Nah, honestly, I did not
Lucas
get
immediately broadcast professional. No, I'm fine.
No, I think I only had like 2 drinks, 3 drinks. 2 liquor drinks.
You left that in
6 to 8 to 10 drinks.
You left.
Well, beers don't count.
You left that entire handle of Trunk Tito's in my home, which I would like you to take.
Well, it was a gift.
Happy New Year.
For when I go back over there. Oh, I left Tito's for me. Thank you.
See, I thought you were going to say watching that show made you want to rob rich people
Yes.
when you started on that, because that's what that show is about.
That show made me
Your
want
Friends
to do
and
that.
Neighbors.
I've always wanted to do that.
Every time you have house sat for me, you take something from my home.
I take things from most people's homes whenever I house sit. $1 million idea. Are you
taken from my home?
You've never noticed.
You've been in my home so
You've
many times.
Never noticed. $1 million idea. You know how there are escape rooms and rage rooms? Someone should buy a mansion and have a thief experience. You and another friend, you have to go there at like 1 o'clock, and you have to break into this home.
Surely that exists.
No, I've never seen it. I would pay a Disney park amount of money to have a realistic.
If you get caught, you lose.
Yeah, it's just like an escape room. If you don't get out on time, you lose. If you don't break stuff in a
You
rage
need
room,
to
you
patent
lose.
this immediately because we are fortunate to have a very large platform. So you've just given
good idea.
about 2 million people within the sound of our voices the idea that they can create this thing.
I am going to trust that someone in our audience would go, okay, great idea. I'm going to do this, but I'm going to give Bert a lifetime pass, and I will also give him 5% in perpetuity. I've seen Shark Tank and Shark Tale.
I love when shows and movies randomly reignite songs from 20, 30, 40 years ago. Like Saltburn did this with Murder on the Dance Floor. That song was released in like the early 2000s, and it was like the #1 song of last year. And then the Kate Bush song was Stranger Things.
What's the, before we talk about the college football playoff, or excuse me, before we talk about Cam Ward and his no shot whatsoever, it seems, at winning NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, what is the song, what's the fruit juice that went viral for the guy? His TikTok name is like Dogface or something like that. He's a longboarder.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Lucas, you'll know what I'm talking about if you heard the song.
He was, but he's drinking the juice riding on his longboard.
It's like cranberry juice?
Yeah, it was cranberry juice. That's
Oh,
what it
yeah,
was.
it's the Fleetwood Mac,
Mac.
the guy doing it to Dreams.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Other iconic
That
songs.
didn't revive Dreams, though. Dreams has been like one of the most iconic songs.
I wouldn't say
of
revived
all
it, but
time.
it did the thing that's currently happening to this Cato guy where it's the #1 streaming song on Spotify because of a viral video.
Iconic examples of songs being revived through movies. Wayne's World's Bohemian Rhapsody, to start the movie, apparently brought it back to the charts.
Interesting. And it never left.
Almost Famous, using Tiny Dancer, made it the sing-along moment. Almost Famous also, incredible
Great movie.
I don't think I've ever seen all those.
Such a good movie.
Guardians of the Galaxy did this twice with Come and Get Your Love and Hooked on a Feeling. Guardians of the Galaxy, probably one of the best soundtracks of a movie in a long time.
You know what? That's on Society for not keeping those songs alive, because every song on that, what's the actor's name? Chris Pratt?
Yes.
Every song on Chris Pratt's character in both of those movies, bangers.
And Stranger Things, Kate Bush is running up that hill. And Master of Puppets brought it back to the charts.
Metallica. It did. So, Cam Ward is nowhere close to the top of the Offensive Rookie of the Year charts when it comes to the odds. FanDuel Sportsbook still has him way down. We would all agree he's had a late season surge. His numbers on the year, 3,117 yards, 15 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 8 of those 15 touchdowns in the last 4 games alone since the start of December. Yet still, there he is, all the way down to 9. As I'm looking at FanDuel Sportsbook, tied with Tyler Warren at plus 40,000, not plus 4,000, plus 40,000.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm not saying he should be the favorite, but are we surprised that Cam Ward is behind the likes of R.J. Harvey, or excuse me, tied with the likes of R.J. Harvey and Tyler Warren for Offensive Rookie of the Year?
Are we surprised? Yes, because we watch every game. Should we be surprised? No, because nobody else watches him. Like the Broncos and the Colts have seen far more. People have seen far more Broncos and Colts than they have Tennessee Titans in 2025. Think about when they're playing their best football, because for a while, how long did he have single-digit touchdown passes, Cam Ward?
Until the start of December.
Yeah, so he's a player that is now playing, and they are playing. He and they, as a team, are playing their best football of the season in the final month of the season, which is what you want to see, albeit a bit later than you'd like to have seen it. But nobody's watching these games. I put it to a poll on Twitter at Buck Rising. You can vote on the polls throughout the course of the show, and then we will update them at the end. I said, what is the biggest reason that Cam Ward has no shot at NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year? And basically the answer is because of the Titans. Because the franchise and the lack of interest in the franchise. We had this conversation the other day on Primetime, I want to say, Robert. Who is a less relevant franchise right now in 2025 than the Tennessee Titans? Is it Arizona? Arizona's probably the best submission. Arizona is the NFC Titans, right? At this point in time? Because even like Carolina, the Saints, Atlanta, and Tampa Bay are being paid more attention to. Now, it's a closer division. Not a good division, but a closer division. I don't know who I would come up with, like, if you put on a poll or if you asked 100 NFL fans, which NFL franchise have you watched the least amount of games in 2025? I bet the Titans and Cardinals they got to be near the top. So people just start watching.
In 2025, for sure.
Yeah.
It's tough, too, because the other bad teams are large market teams. Like New York, both of their teams, terrible, but large markets, so they're going to get the TVs.
Yeah, and obviously some of these players are in large markets. I mean, Jackson Dart is still up there at plus 1,900. He is 5th, but it does feel like a 2-horse race at this point between Ted McMillan, who's had a great year. He is 70 yards away, 71 yards away from a 1,000-yard receiving season as a rookie. He is minus 135 on FanDuel. Tyler Shuck at plus 145, followed by Travion Henderson, who's been excellent with the Patriots, plus 1,100. So really between Shuck and McMillan for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
So you're looking at FanDuel. I'm looking at DraftKings. On DraftKings, he's 10th. He's behind both Warren and Harvey. He's plus 30,000 on DraftKings Sportsbook. It's Ted McMillan, Tyler Shuck, Travion Henderson, Jackson Dart, Ibuka, Harold Fannin Jr., the tight end for the Browns.
That makes it. He should be above Tyler Warren. I don't get how FanDuel doesn't have Harold Fannin Jr. on here at all.
Ashton Genty, Tyler Warren, R.J. Harvey. Warren and Harvey are both tied at plus 25,000 on DraftKings Sportsbook. Cam Ward is plus 30,000 on DraftKings Sportsbook. He has the 10th longest odds, according to that sportsbook. The only other players below him are Woody Marks, the Texans running back, Oronde Gadsden Jr., or the second, rather, the Chargers tight end, Shedeur Sanders, Omarion Hampton, and Kyle Monangai. So, is Cam's performance such that it would make sense that we're looking at him in the final month of the season and saying, hey, guys, now's the time to pay attention to Cam Ward if you actually want to see the kind of progress that he's made in the rest of the NFL. I don't know if Offensive Rookie of the Year, are there the same amount I should know this. There's only 50 MVP voters. Are there also only 50 Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year voting? I don't know the answer to that question.
Neither do I.
Teresa Walker would probably, because she's on the Associated Press. I could text Teresa and find out. But yeah, I just assume that there's no he has no shot of playing in prime time at any point in the near future. I would expect the Titans would have no primetime appearances in 2026 as well. So it's the same voters for all of these postseason awards. A collection of 50 voters. There's some on an AP board. There's a handful of broadcasters and analysts who get a vote. They do change who votes every year, so it's not the same 50 people year in and year out. But yeah, the 50 people who are being polled right now are watching actual playoff teams and good rookies on playoff teams, as opposed to the Titans aren't the worst team in football anymore, obviously. But.
Yeah, but Tyler Shuck's not on a playoff team. He has had better individual performances. His numbers have been better. He has started less games, but per game he's had multiple 300-yard passing games. Cam Ward hasn't had that yet. But I guess to really appreciate the Cam Ward improvement, you do have to be watching Titans games, right? Because he's doing some really cool stuff, sandwiched in between some mistakes and some losses, obviously. Here in this last stretch, even, where they've won 2 of 4, they've lost 2 of those games, and there's been a lot of bad mixed in with the good. So I guess it hasn't flashed enough to rise above a 3-win Titans team and grab people's attention. I still think it's a little insane to have him neck and neck with R.J. Harvey. 500 yards rushing as a rookie.
And again, below
with the Denver Broncos.
Books,
yeah. I think that's a little like, I don't know. But it's hard to make an argument that he should be in front of Ted McMillan or Travion Henderson or Emeka Egbuka or Tyler Shuck, who just has been a more sound passer this year. Clearly has had a higher floor this year. It doesn't mean he has a bigger ceiling than Cam.
Curtis on YouTube says, yeah, our fans aren't voting for Cam on the polls or retweeting them to help him at all. This isn't the Pro Bowl. The fans don't have a vote here, so it's not about the size. Well, I suppose it would be to some extent about the size of the market that you're in, but the fan voting has nothing to do with these votes. That's specific to Pro Bowl. And even Pro Bowl, I mean, the fan voting is the smallest percentage of the voting, right, between the players and the coaches that also vote?
They say it's 30-30-30.
No, that's not true.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. And the other thing to note is, I guess from an odds standpoint, these voters only give first, second, and third place. So, like, anything after the third odds, like, they're probably not going to be even in the running for Rookie of the Year anyway. So, I mean, that would probably reflect why the odds are what they are.
And somebody else says on YouTube, Rookie of the Year isn't about improvement by the end of the year. It's about the entire body of your work. And I think that is a fair assessment, because let's say that Shuck and Cam had the opportunity head-to-head in the final month of the season to put themselves over the top of one another. Shuck went undefeated in the month of December and has honestly looked better in a smaller sample size.
And won the head-to-head.
Yes, won the head-to-head, undefeated in the month of December, has more 300-yard passing games than the likely MVP of the league this year in Drake May. Tyler Shuck has been the better rookie quarterback. It doesn't mean that he will be the better pro, but in his rookie season, he has been the better statistical performer on a better football team. He has elevated his team more, I think, this year than Cam Ward has. He also has more to elevate him than Cam Ward has. Both of those things can be true.
Defensively, Carson Schlesinger, the linebacker for Cleveland, is the overwhelming favorite. FanDuel has him at minus 750. James Pierce Jr. at plus 650. Next up, are we surprised that Carson Schlesinger is that big of a favorite to win Defensive Rookie of the Year?
He has been incredible. Like, in a social media world where tackling numbers can kind of phase people out, where it's like, oh, he leads the team in tackles, he has the most, like, generally that just means that your defense is not that good and can't get people off the field. But it's not just tackles. It's what he's doing in coverage. It's turnovers. He is a fully faceted linebacker in year one out of UCLA. He has looked incredible this year, but I don't expect anyone to be I'm not going to be upset if people are surprised by this, because he plays on a terrible team.
Yeah, off-ball linebacker on a bad team.
But I mean, his numbers are like eye-popping. 156 total tackles, 2.5 sacks, 2 interceptions, He has 3 passes defensed. He's got 13 rough run stuffs this year. He has been their draft class has panned out pretty well, all things considered. I mean, I know they still have a huge answer or a huge question at quarterback moving forward, but if you get beyond the Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel of it all, the rest of them have had pretty good seasons.
But overall, like on aggregate, they have to be pretty optimistic on what they've seen from Shedeur Sanders, right? Like, I feel like he's put in some pretty solid performances.
I think he's been fine. You know, I don't think it's enough to say. It's not like Shuck or Cam where you're like, yeah, that guy, you know, at least in the immediate, that guy's what we're rolling with. I don't think you have to be definitive on Shedeur.
I feel like they feel pretty comfortable that they could trade him for more than they drafted him for.
I agree with that. If you're a team like, I mean, hell, what about the Colts? The Colts could be in the Shedeur Sanders, Malik Willis market. Wouldn't Titans fans hate that if Malik Willis ended up being a starting quarterback for the Colts?
It's kind of like the Joe Milton experience from last year. Like, we aren't going to keep him, but we understand why someone else would want him.
You know what? Schwesinger's been awesome, but I would have a hard time not voting for Xavier Watts. Xavier Watts is awesome.
Yeah, you can't even vote for him or you can't bet on him on FanDuel.
Right now, I'm looking at, again, we've got 2 different sports books up. Lucas is looking at FanDuel. I'm looking at DraftKings. Schwesinger is the favorite on both. Nick Emanuari, the safety, is second, according to DraftKings, then James Pierce, then Xavier Watts, then Abdul Carter at plus 10,000. I was laughing because Nate Washington had quote tweeted Abdul Carter's begging and pleading, or basically saying, you could go ahead and just give me that defensive rookie of the year.
Oh, yeah.
And Nate tweeted it with a video basically alleging that Abdul Carter was displaying the behavior of someone who was on crack.
Very disappointing rookie season for Abdul Carter.
Very disappointing defensive season for the Giants across the board. There's way too much up front there for them to not have a bigger impact this year.
He still ended up with 4 sacks with a game to go. He's actually heated up a little bit in the last few. He's had a sack or at least half a sack in each of the last 4 games after having half a sack to his name until the start of December. But, okay. Harold Fannin Jr. might be the best, by the way, if we're talking about that Browns draft class. Like, he might be the best of the bunch. He's been a stud all year. 6 touchdown catches.
I haven't paid attention to that Michigan defensive tackle that they drafted.
He's been fair.
Yeah.
I think he has like 5.5 sacks on the season. They might have the best draft in the NFL because not only did they have a killer draft where they drafted a future starting defensive tackle, linebacker, running back, Dylan Sampson, Fannin starting at tight end, getting 2 potential quarterbacks. They also have an extra first-round pick next year, and albeit it's going to be in the 20s because the Jaguars are going to make the playoffs. But when you get that kind of haul plus an extra first-round pick, that's a home run.
Yeah. How would we grade, as of right now, the Titans' rookie draft class? As a whole.
I'd give them a B. I think they've overcame a lot.
I would agree with that, but I think a B is too strong. They are like a B would mean that they've done something of consequence beyond just December. I'd probably give them. I might be comfortable with a C.
I would say a B to Robert's point on what they've been asked to do. Like Alec Iomanner and Chimere Dike on offense. Dike has shown himself to be one of the best return men in the league rookie year, but on offense have been asked to be full-time starters.
Yeah, but Femi hasn't done anything at all.
And
Kevin
that
Winston
is the
Jr.
one,
hasn't done anything really.
Like Femi is the one big blemish on the draft class right now, mostly due to availability. And when he was on the field, he wasn't really making an impact at a high position of need for the Titans. So I'd go B- for that. The only knocks really being Femi and Kevin Winston Jr.
No, I don't think those are the only knocks. I think, at least for me, I wanted more out of Cam Ward this season, understanding his circumstance. That may seem unfair, but again, I reserve the right to have a higher standard for the number 1 overall pick.
I guess. I just feel like that is kind of just putting a blind eye to the amount of stuff that he has been put in front of him.
Anything but, bud. I talk about it every day.
Can somebody remind me why Femi wasn't added back to the active roster? Because that was the expectation, right? That he would spend 4 games out and then come back. I didn't know if we ever got an update on that.
He may end up playing this week. He was just ruled out. He's still technically in his practice window. So they could theoretically activate him before Sunday and let him play against the Jags. But yeah, Slater obviously wasn't going to play this year, I think, in a perfect world. So I'm not going to ding them for Slater not participating. And I would be optimistic about the floor for Gunnar Helm, Chimere Dike, Alec Iomanner, and Cam Ward. Those are all good things. But it wasn't a game-changing draft class. Yes?
No, but they essentially ended up doing like everything.
Yeah, sure.
Outside of Jeff.
On offense.
On offense, especially on offense.
Sure.
Defense, just injuries, just piled up. It sucks that Kevin Winston Jr. had a late start to the year and then had his year ended early. But I think there is something to be excited about there. But overall, those guys have taken their opportunities and run with them on offense, I would say.
I agree.
Now, if you're going to grade them on a curve from previous drafts that the Titans administration has
they're
done,
the best draft since 2019.
A+++.
I mean, just to get people in here that are like, okay, this guy can play.
Yeah,
okay, we have guys at positions now, instead of rookies just being rookies.
Titans couldn't get anything out of Traylon Burks at the wide receiver position. And here's Chimere Dike and Elagayo Manor, leading the team in touchdowns. So, yeah, I would say compared to recent drafts.
Oh, yeah. No, they're A+ by a mile compared to recent drafts.
So Vanderbilt has already set a record for wins in a season with 10. They have a chance to up it to 11 with one key player missing. We'll preview their ReliaQuest Bowl kickoff in 20 minutes coming up next.
No one wants to deal with a plumbing, HVAC, or electrical emergency. Most of the time, you don't know what it will cost or if it'll get fixed correctly or if someone is just trying to sell you something. That's when you call Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Their experts are going to solve your problems quickly. The price you're told is the price you'll actually pay. There's no hidden fees or surprises on your bill. Hiller has been in business for over 35 years and is family-owned and operated. Their techs are professional, experienced, and trustworthy. And when they're on their way, you'll receive a photo of the tech and a link to track them in real time. No more wasting time waiting around. 100% satisfaction guarantee of happy you'll be or the service is free. That is the Happy Hiller promise. So visit them online and book today at happyhiller.com. We are just about 13 minutes away from kickoff between the Vanderbilt Commodores and the Iowa Hawkeyes in the ReliaQuest Bowl, taking place at Raymond James Stadium, the home of the Tampa Bay Bucks in Florida. Vanderbilt looking to improve to 11-2 on the season. Iowa looking to have something to say about that after Vandy having their most successful regular season in program history, their first time playing in bowl games in consecutive seasons, the second time in program history playing bowl games in consecutive seasons since the Commodores have been in existence, which is quite some time. At this point in time, is there a world, because I see a comment in the chat that made me laugh. It says from Dixie, your old friend, Pavia ain't going out, losing to Iowa. Now, Iowa, defensively, is an interesting test for this Vanderbilt offense because they're not necessarily the most talented bunch in the world, but they are as tough as they come historically. And I'm not just going off precedent. They are perpetually an 8-4 team, it feels like, heading into their bowl game.
And they've got 10-2s sprinkled in. Like Kirk Ferentz, man. Let's not forget, longest tenured active head coach in all of college football.
Yeah, it's like 120 years or something like that.
He's been there since the 1900s.
Whoa.
99, he took over. But yes, it feels like they are 8-5 every year, but they'll drop in a 10-win, an 11, 12-win season every now and again. They have not won a bowl game since a Music City Bowl victory in 2022. Iowa hasn't. Vanderbilt has never won back-to-back bowl games in their history. So all sorts of firsts that they've already checked off this year, Heisman finalists, 10 wins, all of these things. They've got a chance to do it again against Iowa, finish with 11 wins. Like, that is such a crazy, unfathomable thing.
An 11-win Vandy team.
I don't care what bowl game it's in. For Vanderbilt to finish with 11 wins, by the numbers, it's the best defense they've seen all year. A top 10 total defense. They're allowing 279 yards per game, Iowa. Texas is probably the best talent defense Vanderbilt's seen, but by the numbers on what has happened on the field, like Iowa made life hell for Oregon a few weeks ago in that game that Oregon had to scratch and claw their way out of. So I'm fascinated by what this looks like for Diego Pavia without Eli Stowers, who's really the only notable opt-out, the Vandy tight end, Mackey Award winner, probable first-round pick. He's not playing. So how much does Diego Pavia lean on his legs in this game, which he did more and more at the end of the season, career high in rushing in the regular season finale against Tennessee? And they're favored to go into Tampa and get a victory. I'm not sure what the weather is like. Is it Iowa weather? Like, is Florida experiencing what we are, or is it Florida weather?
I only know this because I have some friends who made a trip down to Tampa for New Year's, and I saw on their Instagram story it was 75 degrees in Tampa Bay yesterday.
Oh, beautiful.
Yes. So
Must be nice.
Will not be Iowa weather. Not quite.
It says it's going to be between 51 and 57 today at kickoff.
Okay, so a bit of a
Nice
drop.
enough.
But yeah, it's again definitively not Iowa weather. Damn near tropical. The air will be too thick for them. Iowa playing down in Tampa in the first week or the final week of December. So, as the Commodores try and get this done, you talk about momentum into the offseason for Tennessee. How much worse it would feel and how much worse it does feel for Tennessee to have lost their final game of the season and have back-to-back losses to Vanderbilt and then last night to Illinois in the Music City Bowl, being held to a season low on offense. There's a lot of icky things about the way that Tennessee ended their season. What does off-season momentum with a win or with a loss look like for Vanderbilt? Because there's no way, I mean, even if Vanderbilt loses to Iowa today, sure, Vandy fans would be disappointed, and you want to see any team, no matter what you're rooting for, baseball, football, basketball, whatever, go out in their final game of the season with a win. Off-season momentum for Vanderbilt looks like what? Because they've already got Jared Curtis, which is a huge feather in their cap moving forward. It's the highest profile recruit that they've had in program history, correct?
And it's not even remotely close.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you've got that. You've got the Pavia litigation that's still kind of hanging out there, and this Baylor situation adding further complications to it potentially. We'll see what happens there. But what does offseason momentum look like for Vanderbilt? Because if they win, house money, everybody feels good. Vandy, 11 wins, like, that's enough to get drunk and naked in the streets if you're a Vanderbilt fan. If they lose, they're still 10-3, and it's still the best season that you've ever had. So, like, there's no downside for Vanderbilt here?
Yeah, I have a hard time picturing a scenario where Vandy goes into the offseason feeling a little bit down, or like obviously you'd
Like,
rather.
what has to happen in this game for that to be the case? I can't come up with the scenario.
I don't know.
Like, they just don't do anything at all? They're just lifeless and Iowa beats the snot out of them?
Right, and Iowa just doesn't really do that. Like, Iowa beating the snot out of you is Iowa beating you like 23-7 or something. So, no, there's no scenario where Vandy doesn't go into next year with tons of momentum. Not while Jared Curtis is there. If that didn't happen, then obviously the question that would be looming would be, what do you do next? How do you replace Diego Pavia, this spark plug, this just figure that has just brought your program to the forefront of college football? What do you do post Pavia? But we know the answer to that. Now, I am fascinated to see what Jared Curtis as a true freshman in the SEC looks like. We've talked about that. It's just not something that happens very often. A true freshman starting quarterback in the SEC. Super talented. But when you talk about the leap that he's going to from D2 single A in Tennessee to the Southeastern Conference, it's substantial, but it should be enough to keep Vandy fans completely engaged and see if it continues to trickle into recruiting a little bit. And can Vanderbilt bring their class into the top 20 next year? Can this momentum continue in that way when it comes to talent acquisition? But I don't know what could possibly happen today for Vanderbilt's party to be spoiled with what this year has been.
Yeah, I think that if you're Vandy, it's house money all around, right? You've made yourself relevant in a way that you've never been relevant before.
Pavia's not losing this game, man. I have a hard time seeing Diego Pavia going out with a loss to Iowa in the ReliaQuest Bowl.
That would probably be the only thing that, assuming that this is, it's maybe not a safe assumption, but assuming that this is Diego Pavia's last collegiate game, that would probably be the only way where that would be a disappointment. Like, you'd like to see Pavia go out on a win.
How will the neutral college football fan remember Diego Pavia? Not the Vandy fan, not the Tennessee fan, but just the average Texas or Texas Tech or Stanford fan. How will they remember Diego Pavia's college football career?
I'm not the right person to ask about this because obviously we've been talking about him for the last 2 years, and I've really, saved the Heisman Trophy situation. Really feel like I've had nothing but good things to say about Diego Pavia and what he's done, rightfully so. But I do feel like nationally he really did himself a lot of harm with how much the post-Heisman, for lack of a better term, petulance made its rounds, right? Like, I really think he hurt himself optically. I don't think, like, if you paid attention to him play, you know that he is more than that. But I think that a lot of people are going to be like, oh, yeah, knock off Manziel. Whatever happened to that guy?
That's what Eric says in the F&M Bank chat. As an Ohio State fan, I will remember him as great value Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, that's too bad.
The thing is, people remember Johnny Manziel very, very fondly. And
as a player, for sure.
And while he was playing, there was a lot of stuff that, this guy's a punk, he's a party animal.
Yeah.
A lot of people liked that. A lot of people didn't like it. But as time goes by, I think that stuff fades. And we just remember how fun Johnny football was at Texas A&M, was the quintessential college football quarterback that you couldn't even explain why he was good, right? Like, he didn't really practice, showed up hungover all the time, partied like crazy. Not like Johnny Manziel had crazy measurables whatsoever.
No.
But he just couldn't be stopped. And it was this supernova that you couldn't compute why it was happening. I think there's some of that with Diego Pavia. And I think people like that. And I think as years go by, the Instagram controversial posts and, the brash, chesty nature that he talked with and played with, I think that kind of fades. And we just remember him as the guy that made Vanderbilt an 11-win team, potentially.
Yeah, I hope that's the case. I think he's earned that. I think, he had a human moment and he didn't handle it well, and he put out a public apology after the fact.
I tell you what Pavia has accomplished to me is more difficult than what Manziel accomplished. That A&M team had a bunch of NFL
Mike Evans
dudes
on that team? Were Myles Garrett and Mike Evans both on that team?
Like, Josh Reynolds was on that team. Like, there were NFL players all over the place.
All right. Coming up next, do we have things to give away?
We do.
What do we have?
the return of Bring Me the Horizon.
God, I thought we were done with them.
Nope. Concert isn't until May.
All right. If you would like those Bring Me the Horizon tickets, 615-737-1045. You call in, you give us the dumbest thing in sports this week. We will give you ours coming up next.
11:02, good morning and happy new year from the Circus Sports at the Mid-Kentucky Downs studio. I'm Lucas Panzica. Tennessee's season ended with a Music City Bowl loss to Illinois in walk-off fashion. A 29-yard field goal as time expired gave Illinois a 30-28 win. Illinois rushing for over 200 yards against the Vols, who finished 2025 with a record of 8-5. Meanwhile, Vanderbilt is seeking the first 11-win season in program history today in the ReliaQuest Bowl, facing off against Iowa. Kickoff is as we speak. Starting tight end Eli Stowers has opted out for Vandy to prepare for the NFL draft. The college football playoff gets underway tonight in Arlington. The Cotton Bowl between Miami and defending champion Ohio State. Kickoff at 6:30. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Six 615-737-1045. Call in and tell us for the last time in 2025, should we do year-end dumbest thing in sports? Should we allow them to have a bit more wiggle room if they so choose? I think there's probably some good submissions out there.
Well, considering we have one guy in the hopper, I think you can call in with anything you want.
Okay. Give us your dumbest thing in sports this year. For the year of 2025, what was the single dumbest thing in sports all year long for the audience? If there's not enough for you to pick from this week, that's fine. I'll keep it to this week. Hell, I'll keep it to, the last 3 minutes in the chat. Somebody is suggesting that the Titans, somebody first asked if Diego Pavia would be available. Do we think that Diego Pavia would be available in the 5th round of the NFL draft? And I wouldn't pretend to have done a ton of research on Pavia's draft prospects here. I'm assuming that's not a draftable player.
I'm assuming he'll be available, yes.
I think the idea that Diego Pavia is draftable at all is a long shot at this
going
point
to
in
Senior
time.
Bowl.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think he's going to do everything just as he has done his entire collegiate career. He's going to try and maximize every opportunity. I think he's going to give it his full effort. And maybe if somebody sees him sitting there in the 7th and says, "Yeah, we'll take a high effort, high energy guy, good locker room guy, good morale guy in the 7th with a flyer of a pick," sure. Diego Pavia is not a 5th round pick. Diego Pavia, I don't think, is a draftable player, because the commenter goes on to say, Cam is our guy for the next 2 years at least, but Pavia could potentially be our Malik or potentially take over if Cam doesn't work out. It's one of the most nonsensical things I've ever heard in my life. Diego Pavia is an excellent college quarterback. Diego Pavia is not a professional prospect.
Maybe a tight end?
A little small for that.
No, come on. Put him somewhere.
What is he, 5'9"?
He belongs on a football field.
Is sure, if he wants to be Taysom Hill, but even Taysom Hill is what? 6 foot plus? He's a big ass dude. Diego Pavia. If you want to put him out there as a gunner or something like that, is he even fast enough to play special teams? I don't know. It would be just fun to see him running around out there doing Diego Pavia things. But get the hell out of here with a 5th round pick. That's the dumbest thing I read all year.
Doubt him at your own peril.
I will. I will. As an NFL draft prospect, with all due respect to Diego, I have my doubts.
Shall we do the dumbest thing in sports this week?
I just did.
Oh, that's your dumbest thing in sports this week. I thought you were just railing on a comment. I didn't realize that was your submission.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty dumb thing.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, I hate to do this, but my dumbest thing in sports this week is the fact that in year 5 of the Josh Heupel era, walk-ons are playing in a game for Tennessee with great respect to William Wright, to Ben Bolton on Tennessee's defense, who have worked to get their opportunities to play for an SEC football team. I hated the fact that there were walk-ons playing on Tennessee's defense regardless of the situation. William Wright, for example, plays corner. And I understand Dramon McCoy's missed the whole year. Ricky Gibson missed the whole year. Colton Hood opted out. But even still, in year 5 of this program, it's got to be in a better place than that. No matter how much a guy has earned an opportunity. And if he's earned an opportunity, give him a scholarship. But the program itself in year 5 has to be in a better place than starting walk-ons at cornerback and linebacker or anywhere, regardless of the significance or lack thereof of the bowl game you're playing in.
We may have a shootout in Tampa. Iowa just went down the field in 5 plays and scored a touchdown from 4 yards out. I'm watching the ReliaQuest Bowl here live, so I'm
No, you're not allowed to watch it. We're not allowed to watch things in studios.
Why not?
I made a decree.
I don't care.
Turn your screen so I can see it.
Respected
turn a
the
camera
level of
over
authority that you've been lying about having for years.
Where are you watching the game at?
On ESPN.
Will you text me your login?
No.
All right, my dumbest thing in sports is Buck not sharing his ESPN Plus login. I'd like to watch the bowl game. No, okay, I have. I'll make these quick. I have a dumbest thing in sports this week and my dumbest thing of the year. Which would you like first?
We'll take this week first.
Okay, the dumbest thing this week. I don't know if you guys are familiar with a Pittsburgh Steelers troll, Pickensburg, but he has tweeted.
I have.
That
guy is very, very obnoxious on social media.
He is probably the biggest troll that is on Twitter and noticeable in name. He tweeted before the Browns game, "I will delete my account. I will unactivate my Twitter if the Steelers lose to the Browns." They did. He did not. The Browns tweeted him. Everyone is piling on this dude. But if you make a bet, you have to follow through with the bet. It's part about being a man, a good person.
That Steelers reporter got his nipples pierced.
He did get his nipple. He got a nipple pierce. He did not get both of them.
That's fine. That's more than most would follow through on.
That's dedication. And my dumbest thing in sports of the year, if you remember back to August, Dan Graziano put out a one big thing on all 32 NFL teams, and he said, "Don't be surprised if the New York Jets lead the league in rushing." Well, I'm here to tell you, Dan, I am not surprised. I'm not surprised that they finished below the top 5.
You've been holding on to this since August.
Yeah.
Why?
Wow.
Why would, in the blue hell, would anyone think the Jets, and I think they're 7th in the league in total rushing right now, but why in any fathomable universe would you think that the Jets would lead the league in rushing? You would have to be good. It makes no sense to me.
You'd have to have a lead on a team. You'd have to be able to bleed clock at the end. Like, that's not the Jets.
I guess his logic there was, Breece Hall, solid player. Justin Fields, 1,000-yard season again.
Breece Hall has never rushed for 1,000 yards. I think he broke that trend this year. So I would have never came into the year going, the Jets can be the best rushing team in the sport. Dan, I mean, I understand it's a thing on all top 32 teams. He had to say something, but he could have said, "Don't be surprised if the Jets are one of the worst teams in the NFL."
Yeah, that would have been.
I would have agreed.
That would have been an easier one for sure. So, 615-737-1045. You can make it the dumbest thing in sports this week or the dumbest thing in sports this year. There's plenty to pick from. Let's go with Kevin in Brentwood to start.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
Sure.
This applies to this week, but you could probably make this organization an annual joke, and that's the NCAA's leadership. I don't know if you've heard, but Baylor University was allowed to bring in a guy that not only was in the NBA draft, but was actually drafted. And before you know it, we're going to have 18-year-old freshmen playing against 24- and 25-year-old NBA rejects if we're not careful. So the lack of leadership, I think, has coaches across the country, at least in basketball right now, furious about what are the rules, what can we do, what can we not do. We please get some leadership in here to fix this thing. I appreciate you guys listening.
Thank you for the call, Kevin. We do appreciate it.
It's a slippery slope.
Remember to stay on hold for the opportunity to win those tickets if you do want those. Bring me the Horizon tickets.
Next time we have Slay on, I'd be interested to know his position on this.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I feel like it hinders players coming out of high school going to college because there are less scholarships for the middle tier, not the 5 stars, the 4 stars. They're always going to be able to go wherever they want to go. But like the players that need a little development, I feel like it hinders them getting to a spot where their talent could be realized and then put in a better position.
It's a way more extreme version of the Pavia thing where it's like, all right, bud, just like at a certain point, you got to move on. Like you got to allow for some other opportunities. It's almost like COVID eligibility that was keeping 24 and 25-year-olds in college football because of COVID eligibility. Did you see what the Rutgers coach said about it? He's like, I'll take players from anywhere. He was like, open the floodgates, baby. Let's go. I'm here to win. I mean, I guess if it's going to be allowed, I want my coach to have that attitude. How about Bob in Jolton? Very good, Bob. How about Jim in Murfreesboro?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I need to preface this by saying I really do like your show, all the promos.
That's not good.
Okay, come on. But the dumbest thing in sports, when you opened it up to the whole year, is the promo for the dumbest thing in sports, where that idiot comedian says dumber than a second coat of paint. It absolutely drives me bonkers, because the second coat of paint is the most important thing to anybody who ever has painted. So I don't need the tickets. I appreciate Bert letting me vent, and that comedian needs to be shot. Thank you.
Whoa. Was that the same one?
Dude.
That idiot comedian, by the way, is George Carlin.
George Carlin.
Probably one of the smarter comedians. I mean, and it's a comedian. It's a joke, right?
Rest in peace, George Carlin.
And that
Don't have to
comedian.
shoot him. Oh, is he dead?
Yeah, he's dead.
Okay. Well, then it's
That's
okay.
the way I
I
almost
guess.
put it
That
years
comedian should have his grade peed on.
Like, I was with him, and I appreciated where he was going with it, but
You
until
guys,
the
it
end.
doesn't have to end in gun violence.
Always has to end in violence.
on this, I looked up to make sure I was right that was George Carlin. There's a message board between painters arguing about this. Dumber than a second coat of paint. Why not a second coat of paint? You had to emirate the coats. I think that it's like they're arguing about
They're getting into painter lingo.
Yeah, it's like that's the most important coat of paint. You're an idiot, sir.
That's crazy.
Is that the same guy that called in? The Vandy fan that said he
No.
wanted to shoot every Vols fan after they
That
won
guy
the
sounded
Natty?
like he meant it.
They both sounded like that. If you're bothered enough to call in about that, you probably are willing to take it the extra mile. Zach in Chattanooga is our last submission.
Hey, Doug. My dumbest thing in sports this week has to be Matt Launder and TCU football Twitter going back and forth late last night after the TCU upset them.
I haven't got a chance to see it, but I did get like a Bleacher Report notification this morning. I guess Leinart was chirping at TCU in some form or fashion about USC and TCU playing in a bowl game, and then USC's piss poor tackling allowed an overtime touchdown to be scored on, what was it, 3rd and 20 for TCU to get the walk-off victory there in a big spot. Great for TCU, not so good for USC. All right, should we get Zach the tickets?
Sure.
Okay, very good. Zach will get to go to the Bring Me the Horizon concert. And we will continue with some NFL analysis in the final week of the regular season with huge playoff implications on the line. Greg Cosell coming up next. All right, we made it. The final week of the regular season in the NFL. It's, Greg, I think the fifth season that you and I have done this podcast together. We're doing a live version of the install with Greg Cosell. Greg is kind enough to make some time for us on this New Year's Eve because I've got Titans practice and Fox Sports to do tomorrow. So we're just going to maneuver the schedule a little bit. You can always subscribe because we'll continue the podcast year-round. Going to be a huge off-season for the Titans and lots of playoff football to discuss, of course. But, Greg, congratulations on surviving 5 seasons of carrying me. I appreciate your time as always.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I always get asked, at this time of year about Christmas and New Year's. And, what else can you say other than the fact that, and this is an indisputable point, that Christmas and New Year's kind of fall during the football season. So it's just, another day in the life, as they say.
That's absolutely the case. The sports calendar, the football calendar does not slow down for Santa Claus or Baby New Year. That's just not typically in the cards. So we have Week 18, and we're coming off a performance between 2 rookie quarterbacks, Greg, that I do want to talk about briefly before we talk about the football of consequence heading into 2026 throughout the course of Week 18 and obviously into the postseason. But with what you saw from Cam Ward in this game, understanding that, as we've talked about, progression is not linear. There were again a lot of wow throws, a lot of off-schedule throws that you don't see a lot of guys at any level of the league make, but still working through some of the routine stuff that we know he's going to spend a ton of time on in the offseason.
Yeah, it was an uneven performance. I mean, not a bad performance. In fact, watching the tape, I thought that he looked pretty much like a professional quarterback. But it was uneven. I thought there were some throws here and there, particularly on the second series. I noticed that he missed some opportunities on the second possession once the Titans got into scoring territory. Tough to know exactly how they teach his reads, so I'm not going to sit here and say that he was bad. But there were throws to be made that either he did not process or just did not turn loose. But overall, there were some really strong throws. He obviously has outstanding second reaction movement ability. That's been showing up in recent weeks. Then there were some other throws in structure that I thought were really good. The Jefferson 27 yards on 2nd and 7 on the 4th possession was just executed exactly the way it's designed with what we call a smash concept. Jefferson ran the corner route, and DK ran the short outcut underneath it, and there's a conflict defender. You're reading the corner. He's the conflict defender. He read the corner and did it beautifully. I mean, there were, there was positive and things, and there were some uneven things, but that's kind of to be expected. And you're 100% right. It's not linear. It's not every snap's not necessarily going to be better than the previous one.
Greg Cosell of NFL Films with us here on 104.5 The Zone. At Greg Cosell is where you can follow him. We'll talk more about what's on the NFL matchup show heading into Week 18 because there are huge games with first-round bye implications. There's divisional implications still on the line, so we'll get to that here in just a second. And, Greg, I didn't prepare you for this question, so if you're not comfortable answering it yet, no worries at all. But I wonder, because you and I have talked about, since Brian Callahan was fired and since they've made the play caller changes that they have, if there is a kind of offense or a tree of offensive coaching that you think best fits Cam Ward's skill set, not necessarily a coach that you think would make the most sense for him or a candidate that's going to interview, but just stylistically, how you think what you've seen from him so far in the pros, in the current configuration of what he's being asked to run, meshes with some of the stuff that you'll see league-wide. Because I indisputably, Greg, they've changed some things about the offense, and he's playing his best football in this final month. But next year is obviously a huge year for them and him to get this correct, and I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
That's a great question, and I have an answer that I think is correct. Some could disagree with me. I don't know what a Nick Holtz would think, who's been around. He's been with a John Gruden for 3 years, which is a certain kind of offense. I see Ward more as and people who, in Nashville and who follow the league, not just the Titans, hopefully will understand. I'll explain a little bit. I see him more in a sort of Ben Johnson intermediate vertical offense. I think that Ward at this point in his career, not that he can't learn it, but I don't see him necessarily as one of those quick game guys, playing with that kind of timing and rhythm, the way you think of a more traditional, let's say, West Coast type style. I see him more in the kind of offense where you run, almost like and again, I'm going back years just because I've been doing this a long time and have studied the tactical history of the game. I see him more in that sort of old style, the old school Don Coryell offense, which is more, intermediate routes. Think of Kurt Warner with the Rams and Mike Martz in those years. That's the way I would see him more than in one of those quick rhythm, get the ball out. I think he'd have to learn. That would take a little longer to learn. Not that he isn't capable, but I don't think that's where his skill set is right now.
And it doesn't mean that as he grows and evolves, things can't be added to what they're doing offensively. But just as a baseline, Greg, we're just trying to see this thing get baseline operational.
And by the way, I don't want this to come across as he can't do one thing, he can only do the other.
Sure.
He's a rookie quarterback who was playing, and we've said this many times, behind an O-line that I think has played better the last month, but overall has still not been great in one-on-one pass protection, as you know, and, playing with rookie receivers and a run game that only in the last month has really come on to be a factor. So, it's a tough season for a rookie quarterback overall. And again, I'm not sitting here saying, because I know people in Nashville are probably just dying for a winner. At this point, 8 wins would probably seem like a great season. But, so we know they're just dying for that. So I'm not going to sit here and say, gee, I think Cam Ward's on his way to being a superstar. I think he could be a great player if many, many things come together. That's not a given, of course. But I think he weathered the storm really well, Buck. And that speaks to the kind of kid he is. And, that I was down there and I got a chance to be around him. So I know what kind of kid he is. I hate to use the word kid. He's not 12, but it just came out that way. But
listen, Greg, I'm 32 and they seem like kids to me anymore.
Yeah. Well, I was 32 a long time ago, Buck. But the point is that he, I think he really weathered the storm. He got beat up early in the season. I don't think he ever really complained about it, or it ever affected him, game after game, and play after play after play. So I think from a mental standpoint and a toughness standpoint, there's a lot to like about how he's made it through this season.
No, it seems to be a superpower, Greg. He's the most sacked quarterback in football heading into Week 18, and he hasn't missed an offensive snap. He's the only quarterback who hasn't missed an offensive snap for his team this year. So certainly a credit to him as he's battled his way through a variety of things. So we have fun football all over the place. The NFL Matchup Show is where you go to preview the NFL slate each and every week, regular season, postseason. Always great insight and information from Greg, from Darius Butler, Sal Powell, and the rest of the crew. So, Greg, as we look at these games with the path to the number 1 seed still alive for 3 different AFC franchises between the Patriots, the Broncos, and the Titans, Week 18 opponent in the Jacksonville Jaguars. Which of these teams which of these matchups are in the show? I guess the Chargers going to the Broncos.
I'm going to do the Chargers Broncos because if the Broncos win, they're the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
And of course the Chargers are deciding to sit Herbert, so we'll see how it goes. But that's the game we're doing because the other games, just have a little more import. We're going to make full segments out of Seahawks 49ers and Ravens Steelers. Those are big matchups. And of course, we're going to do Panthers Bucks, but there's kind of an issue there depending on what the Falcons do. So we'll see how that plays out. And then we're going to do Lions Bears just because, the Bears are kind of locked in. Well, they're not really. I mean, technically the Eagles could get to 2, but the word on the street seems to be that the Eagles might rest some people. So we'll see what happens. But it's never a bad thing to show Caleb Williams, who I think is playing really good football, and I think is going to be a really good player.
Can I ask you about Caleb Williams? Because I do want to come back to the Broncos out of curiosity and where you kind of think they're trending offensively at this point in time and some of the stuff that they're doing. But Caleb Williams, I also, again, they're different players, but just because you mentioned Ben Johnson and the kind of offense that he runs as potentially a fit for a player like Cam Ward that has that kind of skill set. And I watch Caleb Williams, and he also has, again, a second-year player, so plenty more growth and development is possible throughout the rest of his professional career. Some of the best throws you'll see all season are made by Caleb Williams, while also some of the most perplexing misses. And I wonder if that's just a mechanical thing that you're seeing from him. How do you kind of diagnose some of the inconsistencies of Caleb Williams?
That's a hard thing to diagnose. I don't think he's mechanically unsound. In fact, a lot of those throws, I think the mechanics are good. I think there are times he does rush himself, and I'd have to really do a study of that, which I haven't, just done that. Although sometimes when I watch a quarterback, I see the little details. Like, I'll give you a great example. Tyler Shuck, and you obviously just saw him play, and he's an older guy. He's pretty advanced as a quarterback, even though he's a rookie. When he hit Olave for that 60-yarder, that was, without going into the weeds, because people are not looking at it as I'm talking about it, but his footwork was phenomenal on that play, because it was a 3-step drop timing pump fake, and then it was a 5-step drop timing throw. So he stopped at 3 steps, but then went back to 5 steps after the pump, because that's what it called for, and he had to get away from the pass rush. So that was just perfect execution. But Williams is a guy that he still misses a few that you just go, okay, you got to make that throw. But he's just such a gifted thrower of the football, and I think he'll get better and better. And when I watched, that was one of the most fun games to watch, both sides of the ball in the 49ers-Bears game. And I came away from that tape, and I even said to my matchup guys, I said, hey, guys, this guy's going to be a great player. In the context of how I know Ben Johnson coaches, and you probably are aware that Bo Hardigree coached with Ben Johnson with the Jets, so I'm sure he's very familiar with a lot of those concepts. But I just feel like that offense with Caleb Williams, who is Jared Goff. I love Jared Goff, but Caleb Williams is more gifted than Jared Goff, and I think he'll be even better in that offense.
I would be remiss. I know I said I wanted to ask you about the Broncos, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about what the 49ers are doing. Like, they are just outrageous at this point in time. And Greg, I understand that their defense, each and every one of these teams has a flaw that can pop up at any point, whether it be in week 18 or as we get the postseason rolling here in the next couple of weeks. But the Niners, just the flow state that Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan seem to be in together, now that Brock Purdy has returned from his injury and it seems as healthy as he's been all season long, like the mind meld that the two of them have within the scheme that Purdy is being asked to execute. I don't know if there's a more fun watch offensively in football right now.
I'm fascinated. There's a whole debate going on now about pure progression, and I'm fascinated by it because, in principle, poor progression is quarterbacks not really diagnosing coverage. But I think that in the NFL, maybe you don't have to diagnose it pre-snap other than maybe middle open, middle closed, where's my blitz alerts? It's the NFL. You can't not have any feel for the defense at all. Technically, pure progression is just looking at receivers sequentially. You go to there's a primary, there's a number 2, there's a number 3. In the NFL, you don't really get to number 4 or number 5. The game's too fast. But I just can't believe, and I'm going to try to learn more about myself by talking to people, after the first of the year, how it's really taught, because I can't believe in the NFL that even in a true pure progression, which the Niners are, and Purdy executes it really well, that there's no sense of the defense at all. This is the NFL. You have to have a sense of the defense to some degree.
We'll see a rematch, of course, in Week 18 between the 49ers and the Seahawks, a 13-win team and a 12-win team squaring off in the NFC West, which has arguably been the most fun division in football one of the most competitive divisions in football, top to bottom. What are you highlighting as far as that matchup goes this week, Greg?
Yeah, that's a full segment for us. Darius Butler is going to look at the Seahawks defense, which is phenomenal. I think they may be the first or second best third down defense in the league. They're really good. They're at the forefront of the big nickel that's taking over the NFL, where you play as your base defense 3 safeties as opposed to 3 linebackers. And Nick Emenwari, the rookie from South Carolina, who I'm sure you saw because of the SEC, a player I noticed when he was a freshman when I was watching other players at South Carolina who were coming into the draft, and I just noticed this 6'3", 220-pound safety who looked great. And I said, this guy's a guy to watch, and turned out to be the case. They're very good. Their defensive front is phenomenal. They don't blitz a lot, but they have a very high pressure rate. And then we just spoke about the Niners. Purdy's played 6 games, and McCaffrey, he's back to being McCaffrey. He's been averaging 4.5 in those 6 games. He may be the hardest runner in the league in terms of getting those tough inside yards. You start getting into the debate about who's the best back. I mean, it's not a mathematical equation, Buck, as you know. It's not like saying 2 and 2 is 4. But I got to tell you, and I'm sure you saw some of the game, but to me, Bijan Robinson's the best back in the league. That guy is just a freak of nature, and he's 225 pounds.
Yeah, no, Troy Aikman he was trying very hard to not compare Bijan on Monday night to Barry Sanders, but you could tell that he was trying to keep himself from going that far, because obviously Barry Sanders is an excellent player in NFL history, and Bijan may end up having an excellent career in the same vein.
When he made Jared versus Smith in the backfield with that move, I mean, that was the move of a 185-pound scat back, and he's 225 pounds. I saw him last year at Radio Row at the Super Bowl, just in normal clothes, obviously, and I didn't immediately recognize him because, I don't see guys without their helmets on usually. I thought he was a linebacker. He is a big, big man.
Yeah, my context for running backs built by linebackers is slightly skewed, given the one that we had here for 8 years.
Derrick Henry, who, by the way, I think he looked pretty good last week, don't you think?
Yeah, Robert Walsh's Ravens benefited hugely from a vintage Derrick Henry performance. I mean, Greg, I know that's not a tactical question necessarily, but just the precedent for somebody like Derrick, if there even is one, he is outrageous to have a career high in carries in that game. And another 4-touchdown performance. I know it's just kind of it's not necessarily a question other than how many players have you ever seen like that?
I'll be the first to admit that I was wrong on Derrick Henry. When he came out, I was uncertain as to whether he could be a feature back, and he's certainly proven me wrong. I'll be the first to admit it. You get guys right, you get guys wrong when you study guys. That's the way it is. I mean, the guy's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's a freak of nature. I mean, I've been around Derrick Henry because he won 2 Maxwell Awards, one as a high school player and then one as a college player. And his waist, I would love to have his waist. He has no waist, and he's 247 pounds.
It's an interesting configuration. Very long legs, very short torso, Derrick Henry, and maybe not necessarily pulling away from people anymore at a what is he, 31? I think Derrick's going to be 32 here.
But he still, this week in particular, boy, did he get the hard yards. It seemed like every run was 8 yards.
Yeah, throwing a gnarly stiff arm on a defender to boot, and it was a vintage Derrick Henry performance. Huge game of the AFC North this week.
I noticed that you noticed that yourself. Yeah,
I just miss it, Greg. I just watch Derrick Henry highlights longingly. Having covered a Hall of Famer for the bulk of my career, and you
know him better than I, but from everything I understand, he's a terrific guy.
Derrick is one of the most genuinely decent people that I've ever had the pleasure to work with or to cover in a media player setting. He's a bit of an introvert, which is always interesting given the larger than life personality on the field. But Derrick, just top to bottom, awesome player, awesome human.
Well, obviously he's Darius is featuring him in the show because we have to, because we don't know about Lamar Jackson. I'm talking to you on a Wednesday. We have no idea if Lamar Jackson's going to play or not. And quite frankly, he hasn't had a great season relative to the seasons he's had in the past. So, you would think that Derrick Henry will be the foundation. And I got to tell you, they put Ricard out there. I mean, it's most of his runs come with Ricard on the field. They did this past week, and the percentage is high all season. And, that's the way they roll. And I imagine they'll roll that way this week.
Greg, appreciate your work this season. As always, obviously, you and I aren't done. The podcast will continue to roll through the postseason and then the very important Titans offseason that's ahead. We have a live show in the not-too-distant future, buddy.
I cannot wait for that, Buck. I'm so anxious and excited about what the Titans do with their head coach and how they go about it, because I truly believe they have their quarterback. I truly believe that. I'm not going to sit here and say he'll be one of the three best, but I truly believe they have their quarterback.
That's a glowing endorsement for the difficult season that was for Cam Ward from Greg Cosell. Buddy, enjoy the football this weekend. I'll talk to you next Thursday. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Buck. A lot of college stuff, too. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, we got a lot of good college stuff to talk about. A lot of fun prospects this year. It's going to be a great time. That's why you got to subscribe to the Install wherever you get your podcast. By the way, for the 104.5 The Zone audience, Greg will be back on 3HL. He's pulling double duty today. Lucas is filling in with Slay, so you can hear more Greg analysis later on this afternoon. All right, coming up next, the SEC's struggles in bowl season. Not just because Tennessee lost last night, but we'll talk about it. Vandy not having the easiest time with Iowa at this point. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to the show, fueled by the greatest hot chicken in the world this year, next year, any other year. Hattie B's Hot Chicken. So the SEC not having the best start to the bowl season. I guess it's no longer the start of the bowl season. What are you making faces back there for? You want to go on an ACC truth or run? I haven't been paying attention to the ACC's record.
No. I just think it's funny that the SEC will disparage other teams until they lose to them. Oh, I didn't recognize that Big Ten was like this, or I didn't know the ACC had good teams in it.
I was laughing this morning. I went to the gym, and our friend Jack Jones, who played offensive line for Tennessee and Murfreesboro's finest, was bemoaning the Tennessee loss to Illinois last night in the Music City Bowl, of which the two of you were in attendance for. And Jack made me laugh because his explanation was, well, the SEC just has better players, so all the good players opt out, and so you're dealing with what's left by the time we get to bowl season, so that's why the SEC keeps losing in bowl season. I was like, I don't hate that explanation.
There's something there.
But there's definitely a level of...
Yeah, I bet you take that. I bet you think that.
Now.
Do you see how quickly he perked up when it was pro-SEC in that regard?
Now, Texas A&M. Look, this pro-SEC thing is like, I will say, I enjoy seeing rivals downfall. Like, there are not many fans out there that sit there and actively root for the SEC. So just putting that out there. But
what was his behavior like last night, by the way? Did he behave himself in the suite?
There were a couple moments where one could say that
he did what that caller did and decided that the Illinois quarterback, Luke Altmaier, should be shot. Yeah.
Kill him.
No violence was suggested. Stop
Kill
that.
him. Him like tapping his fingers together like a mad genius. Like, yes. Sling him down.
Luke Altmaier, former SEC quarterback.
So he's better because he played in the SEC now, but
that's what it is.
But he's not good enough to play in the SEC, but he beat the SEC.
Yeah,
but
Kiffin kind of got some fingerprints on him, and that is what has led to all of his.
I see.
Okay,
I see.
No, but SEC fans don't sit on couches going, "Go SEC, come on SEC."
I feel like I see a lot of it.
Unless it's a conversation about SEC versus everyone else.
That's what I'm saying.
Somebody called me an op on Twitter just because I went to a Big Ten school.
Well, they do it in a different context. They're doing it through the context of, well, my team had X record. It's harder to have X record in this conference than it is for your team to have its record in that conference. So that's where SEC fans kind of puff their chest a little bit. Not because we all root for other SEC teams when our team's not playing. That's not the case at all. But yes, there is this mystique, this standard that the SEC is held to that it has not necessarily lived up to, regardless of opt-outs in bowl season. The only win by an SEC team so far that is not against another SEC team, where an SEC team had to win, as is the case for Bama, Oklahoma. The only one is Ole Miss over Tulane in the college football playoff. So with the Bama-Oklahoma game aside, an SEC on SEC matchup, the Southeastern Conference is 1-4. Texas A&M lost to Miami out of the ACC. Mizzou lost to Virginia out of the ACC without their starting quarterback. Houston beat an LSU team that is a shell of itself and doesn't have a coach, as its next coach walked out of the building basically at halftime after his TV interview. People made a big deal about that with Lane Kiffin. I thought it was funny.
I mean, it is kind of ridiculous, right? Like, just stick around, Lane.
You can stay, man. Like, you don't feel it pertinent. Like, I get you're going to watch the game on film, but
why is he like this?
You can't just stay and watch a quarter and a half of your whatever.
I love him for that, but it's just kind of like,
I will say,
that's something I would do.
He's made it so hard to defend him in all of this.
No, nobody's defending Lane Kiffin.
I feel like I was for a while. Like I was kind of on the Lane Kiffin train.
Good for you.
But he's made it really, really hard. Tennessee obviously loses to Illinois. And here's Vandy down 7-0 against Iowa. Now, Vandy is driving. A tip drill interception by Vanderbilt in the end zone allowed the Commodores to avoid going down in a 14-0 hole. You know, we spent all this time talking about Diego Pavia, and rightfully so. We have not talked about Mark Gronowski, the Iowa quarterback, who is a danger with the ball in his hands, running the football. Single-season rushing record for an Iowa quarterback with over 500 yards on the year. Immediately had a 44-yard rush on the opening drive for Iowa. Vandy just settled for a field goal And it is 7-3, about midway through the second quarter. See what happens in the college football playoff for the SEC.
Said it with your chest that you didn't think Vandy would lose to Iowa, and it's very, very early on in the game. But I am curious to see how they handle this situation. Iowa, and it's a 4-point lead right now. It's not insurmountable by any stretch of the imagination, especially when you know Pavia is capable of the things and the fourth quarter or second half theatrics. Maybe theatrics is the wrong word, but he has had big second halves all year long. We'll see if he's able to rebound with an early lead for Iowa in the ReliaQuest Bowl.
Michigan, Texas today, the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl.
I am fascinated to see what Michigan looks like because the Underwood kid, the quarterback for Michigan, didn't hit the portal. And Kyle Whittingham, as we talked about, is the best-case scenario that Michigan could have tripped and fallen back asswards in after the entire Sharon, the tragedy, the Sharon Moore story at this point in time. I wonder how they're going to play against a team like Texas that, they've seen good defenses Michigan has this year. Texas is as talented a defense as any, I think, and that can pop up in moments. What's the line in that game?
Texas -4.5. That's just me looking at the ESPN website, ESPN Bet.
Feels right, though. I've got Texas -4.5 on CBS Sportsline, too. I don't know if Michigan can't give Arch. Is Arch playing, I assume?
I mean, he's coming back next year, so yeah, no reason for him not to.
So I would slightly lean Michigan plus the 4.5 in that situation, though both of their records against the spread this year, and again, opt-outs can impact this thing, but both of their records against the spread this year, pretty bad. Both are 4-8.
SEC teams will be back in action in the college football playoff tomorrow, and there's one helmet matchup specifically that we have to talk about when it comes to separating the uniforms on the field and the histories of both programs and what has actually happened on the field this season in the Rose Bowl tomorrow.
We'll do that next.
Coming up on 12 o'clock. Good afternoon and Happy New Year from the Circa Sports at the Mint Kentucky Downs studio. I'm Lucas Panzica. Tennessee season ended with a Music City Bowl loss to Illinois in walk-off fashion. A 29-yard field goal as time expired gave Illinois a 30-28 win. The Fighting Illini rushed for over 220 yards on the Vols, who finished the season with a record of 8-5. Meanwhile, Vanderbilt pursuing the first 11-win season in program history in the ReliaQuest Bowl, taking on Iowa in Tampa. 4:32 to play in the second quarter. Vanderbilt trails 7-3 Iowa with the football in Vanderbilt territory. College football playoff gets underway tonight in Arlington. It's the Cotton Bowl between Miami and defending champion Ohio State. Kickoff at 6:30. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Finally, the college football playoff in earnest really begins, because we've had the first round, of course. We're heading into the quarterfinals this coming weekend, starting tonight, of course, and I appreciate James Madison and Tulane's participation and things like that, but I'm really happy to see meaningful matchups in the real crux of the college football playoff get started tonight and head on into the weekend. We're going to preview that before Jason Fitz of Yahoo Sports and Fox Sports Radio awakes from his slumber and joins us at 12:20. And we will, of course, talk a great deal of college football playoff with Fitzy as well, who does a great deal of their college football playoff coverage for Yahoo Sports. 615-737-1045 is the number, and the question that I would pose to the audience in the final hour of 2025 for us anyway, is this: which of these quarterfinal matchups has the greatest upset potential? So, if you're not aware, I don't know how you couldn't be at this point, but you've got the 10-seed Miami against Ohio State tonight in the Cotton Bowl. You have Oregon and Texas Tech tomorrow in the Orange Bowl. Alabama and Indiana in the Rose Bowl, and the quarterfinal concludes with Ole Miss and Georgia, a regular season rematch, sans Lane Kiffin, to give us the culmination of the quarterfinal round. Where does the biggest upset potential lie in these four games? Ohio State is the biggest favorite over any of these teams at this point. Ohio State, a 9.5-point favorite over Miami at this point in time. I am fascinated to see Oregon and Texas Tech. We were talking about it, Fitzy and I, last night on Fox. That feels like the biggest science experiment game of any of these. Alabama, Indiana is a fascinating matchup, too, and just some good old-fashioned SEC football, Robert Walsh, between Ole Miss and Georgia to top things off. Where is the biggest upset potential, though?
I kind of want to say Texas Tech, Oregon. My gut says Bama, Indiana, but that's just because my brain has a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that Indiana, by every metric, has been a better football team than Alabama this year. Like, all of these games have varying levels of intrigue for different reasons. Is Ohio State going to use the loss in the Big Ten title game as a springboard into the playoff the way they did against Michigan last year in the regular season finale, and then going on a run, just torching everybody on their way to a national championship, right? Is Texas Tech, and like you said, the science experiment game, two completely different ways to build a roster. Oregon has done it via multiple top 10 recruiting classes. Texas Tech went out and spent a bunch of money. Now, with that said, some of the biggest pillars of this Texas Tech roster were recruited and developed by Texas Tech, by Joey McGuire. Baron Morton's the quarterback, is a Texas Tech recruit. Their two lead rushers were recruited by Texas Tech. Jacob Rodriguez, who people were voting for in the Heisman race at linebacker, is technically a UVA transfer, but he wasn't like this big money acquisition. He transferred after barely playing for a year at UVA, was developed at Texas Tech. But yet still, it is two completely different ways to build a roster. Oregon just at no point this year has been terribly convincing, I would say, while Texas Tech has continued to show people they should be in consideration in the national championship picture. And then Ole Miss, Georgia, you've got the rematch, sans Lane Kiffin. So every game has its own sort of bullet points of intrigue. But biggest upset potential, the cop-out answer, I guess, would be Texas Tech, Oregon, because that's the smallest spread.
Bryce on YouTube, where you can interact with the show as well, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, if you would like to live stream the broadcast and comment via the FNM Bank chat. Bryce says, in the Final 8, is there really that much of an upset? Well, yeah, if Miami upset Ohio State, that would be a massive upset. Like,
Yeah.
I understand that the talent profile between Miami and Ohio State is closer than the point spread might indicate, but if Carson Beck goes out there and beats Ohio State's defense, it's a huge deal. It's the biggest, sans a national championship for Miami. It's the biggest win that they've had in the last 2 decades of that program?
Yeah, and I don't care what Vegas says. I don't care what's happened this year. Indiana going to the national semifinal is an upset, regardless of context. Like, if that game ends tomorrow in the Rose Bowl and Indiana is on the winning side of it as touchdown favorites, if they do what Vegas says they're technically supposed to do.
Touchdown and a half.
I'm still viewing it as an upset. Like, I don't care. My brain just can't wrap my head around that. In the big picture, in the grand scheme of things, the entire Curt Cignetti experience at Indiana is just one giant upset. And beating Alabama in the Rose Bowl to make the Final Four absolutely would be the latest in a long list of against all odds accomplishments, even if they are the undefeated Big Ten champion, #1 overall seed.
No, it's still the most unthinkable thing in the world to say that Indiana football is a touchdown and a half favorite in a Rose Bowl as the #1 overall seed against Alabama, who's still trying to figure some things out. Like that sentence does not compute, no matter what the modern day of college football looks like.
Yeah. And then after all of that, I feel like Ole Miss, Georgia has the potential to be the best game. If it's anything close to what the regular season meeting is, obviously the question is about Lane Kiffin. And will that Ole Miss offense show up in the same way without Kiffin pulling the strings? Gunnar Stockton has stepped up in every big moment he's been called upon this year. He's had his best performances when Georgia has needed him the most, in that Tennessee game, right, in the SEC championship. Will he do it again in a matchup where he might have to go score 40 to win the game?
I say this somewhat begrudgingly, but if I told you that I feel the best about Georgia's chances of anybody left in the field to go on and win a national championship before we see this entire thing play itself out, not just because Kirby's done it and done it before, and Gunnar Stockton is playing pretty high-level football, but there's just something about the Georgia football program that's giving me a degree of confidence. And I'm not saying that Indiana can't do this, because all they've done is prove everybody wrong for 2 years straight at this point in time. So I also am too caught up in the idea that it is unthinkable for Indiana to be in this position that I'm discounting my alma mater here, even though I really shouldn't, for as good as Curt Cignetti and Fernando Mendoza, and really that defense. We don't talk about that defense. Indiana's defense is badass. That's one of the biggest standouts, one of the biggest takeaways from this season for me is they don't profile that way as talent, but they fly around like an SEC defense does. And we'll see how that interior defensive line injury that happened freakishly after the Big Ten title game impacts them, because I do imagine that Indiana is gambling more with depth than any other program left in the field at this point in time. But I don't know. There's something about Georgia that maybe I'm going with the easiest thing, which is they've done it before, and so they can do it again. But I feel the best about, if I was to pick a national champion today, I would probably pick Georgia.
Well, if we're to have the conversation who feels like they're peaking right now, it would be between Indiana and Georgia, and that's not a bold statement. It's the Big Ten champ and the SEC champ. But it does feel like Georgia is playing its best football. Indiana has kind of just been playing its best football all year, and nobody was really buying into it until they went and did it against Oregon, and then especially when they went and did it against Ohio State.
The dip was Penn State, but they survived it.
Right. And you can still make an argument in all of this that Ohio State is the most talented team in the field.
Oh, I don't think it's close.
Right? But when you look at what they're up against in Miami, is there an argument to be made that Miami touts the best front offensively and defensively that Ohio State has seen all year?
Oh, that Ohio State has seen?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say in the field. I said no, Texas Tech.
That
Texas
Ohio
Tech
State
is
has
awesome.
seen. It's between, I suppose, Texas, whose offensive line underperformed for the better part of the first half of the season, and Indiana, who has just risen to every moment that has been presented to it. But
And they're
Miami,
definitely a better defensive front than they are an offensive front.
Miami's
Indiana.
loaded up front.
Yeah, they are.
Miami can get after Julian Sand in a way that not many teams, really not any teams, have this year.
It's really just a question of Carson Beck in that game, isn't it? Like, can Carson
He's the
Beck
wild card
survive
of
that
game.
defense?
Yeah, he's kind of the wild card there.
So let's go through this since we're not doing picks with Brett Kern today, and we will not be on locally tomorrow or on Friday. But for what it's worth, I don't. Are we carrying college football playoff games on the zone tomorrow?
No. We will be carrying the NFL action on Westwood One over the weekend, and of course Titans Radio on Sunday.
Okay, so if you want to get live reaction to the college football playoff games tomorrow, Fitzy and I are going to be on from I think it's 2 to 6 Central Time on Fox Sports Radio, which will be carried then on 104.5 The Zone. So we're looking forward to that. But all right, so Miami and Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl as we look at this game. Is it just Ohio State money line the whole way through? Can Miami cover the 9.5? I'm going to bet. In fact, I will bet right now Miami plus 9.5. I think that line is too big for a team that talented.
That line feels like it is looking back at last year and how Ohio State responded to the Michigan loss. That's what that feels like to me. So I think I'm with you. Nothing about this Ohio State team makes me feel like they're just going to run through Miami like a buzzsaw.
Well, and think about what you said about the best defenses that Ohio State has faced so far this year. You mentioned Texas at the very onset of the season in Indiana. So Ohio State has played both of those defensive fronts. And frankly, they've struggled against both. So if you put a third one out there and maybe, Ryan Day calling plays, didn't their offensive coordinator leave for Hartline left for a job, right?
Yeah, he's the head coach at USF now.
Okay.
Oh, I can't remember if he is coaching in the playoff. Yes.
He is coaching in the
He will
playoff.
coach in the playoff. But he's not the only one. I mean, Will Stein, the offensive coordinator at Oregon, is now the head coach at Kentucky. He's still coaching. Tosh Lupoy, the defensive coordinator at Oregon, is the head coach at Cal. He's coaching in the playoff. Just another kind of, okay, how are those guys balancing both of those? Getting ready for your new job with the portal opening up and all of these things and game planning and trying to execute to win and move on to the national semifinal. But Brian Hartline is there. He is calling plays.
I think Ryan Day's calling plays.
Ryan Day actually took the play calling. Hartline is there. He is coaching the Buckeyes. But Ryan Day is the offensive play caller. That's right. That's something that we found out after Hartline took the USF job, that Day is taking that off his plate, maybe smartly. It's an interesting move to see how it plays out. Does that disrupt the cadence of the offense at all for Ohio State? Not like Ryan Day's not been a play caller. It's how he got the job in the first place. He's been a play calling head coach as well. But interesting thing to do right before the postseason.
Oregon is a 2.5-point favorite over Texas Tech. I'm taking Texas Tech money line.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think I'm with you. I think I want to go Texas Tech. If there's
the
an
best
upset,
defensive front in football.
Yeah, and just at every turn, they've just continued to rise to the moment. I think I'm with you. I think I go Texas Tech. What's their one loss again?
Texas Tech, didn't they beat BYU both times?
Yeah, they routed them both times.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Oh, who did Texas Tech lose to? Arizona State back in October.
Okay. Bama and Indiana in the Rose Bowl. Indiana, depending on where you look, 7 or 7.5. A touchdown plus favorite, let's say. Bama to cover. I think I like Indiana to win. It's not a great way to do the analysis to say that Indiana's just been the more consistent and reliable football team on both sides of the ball all season long. And listen, the biggest factor here is it's supposed to be like flooding level rains in Pasadena, where the weather is almost always beautiful for the Rose Bowl. It is going to be a torrential downpour.
Bama struggled to run the ball all year.
And Indiana, that would favor a situation. Your rushing attack has to be able to travel in this particular situation. Your rushing attack and your defense all through the course of the postseason will give you the best ability to stay in a game like this. I think I'll take Indiana to win, but I'll take Alabama to cover.
Bama is healthy, about as healthy as they've been really in the back half of the season, but I think I agree, man. Indiana's just been the better team at almost every turn. It's hard for me to make that switch in my brain, but I think I agree.
I'll take Georgia money line and call it a day.
Yeah, Georgia takes care of business. Junior Sherrill, by the way, just went into the injury tent for Vandy, who is down 7-3 still inside the 2-minute timeout in the ReliaQuest Bowl. He's been balling. He's got 6 catches for 40 yards, and we'll see what that looks like for Vandy trying to dig out of a hole.
Yeah, they're in the hurry-up right now with under a minute and a half to play in the first half of this game, so we'll keep you updated on that. What do we got next?
We've got Jason Fitz to preview the college football playoff action.
Talk a little bit about that, and we'll get back to that Offensive Rookie of the Year conversation with Fitzy coming up next.
I feel like it is a generally accepted thing to have your Christmas tree up through New Year's, right? Like, I don't think it's a controversial, polarizing thing that people do.
Did any of us put up a Christmas tree?
I don't have one at my current place of living, no. But I'm just saying in general, right? Humans with emotions that enjoy Christmas.
So not us.
But, Fitz, is it appropriate to continue playing Christmas music after December 25th with a hard cutoff on January 1st?
Look, I think it's appropriate, but there's also sort of a little line, like y'all know that I'm Christmas through and through and through. There is a spot that's sad to me. The day after Christmas, on the midway through the 26th, when you're driving around in your car, and all of a sudden those channels you've been listening to on Sirius XM are suddenly now all weird stations of rock music that nobody listens to, or like the weird 40s Junction station. Like all of a sudden you listen to, you're like, what in the hell is on my radio? I need an extra day of grace. So give me like midway through the day of the 27th. I don't need Christmas to be abruptly just taken out from under us, but midway through the day of the 27th, just start getting rid of most of those channels. Leave me with like one until the 28th. Kind of let me ease off of the spirit. And then, yeah, like I think the appropriate time to take down the tree is right after New Year. Like we could all just settle into, the doldrums of January 3rd on January 3rd.
Yeah, that's why I thought, you'd want one last song to send you off into your new year. And if I remember correctly, that was your number one Christmas song last week.
The greatest of the Christmas songs.
It wasn't. It was not. It's a trashy Christmas song. It's bad. It's just arguably bad. And just like Buck Rising, it's just, man, the more you listen to it, the more you're like, why am I listening to this? Yet you can't stop listening to it because people keep force-feeding it to you everywhere. That is Feliz Navidad.
Yeah, baby. Volume shooting. That's my formula, and I'm sticking to it. By the way, 4 more hours of national radio tomorrow with Jason Fitz on Fox Sports Radio during the college football playoff. I want you to get on here, Fitzy, because you and I did 4 hours last night from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. You can check out the podcast via Fox Sports Radio if you don't get to catch those things live whenever we do sit down and get to hang out that way nationally. I want you to get on here and tell Lucas and Robert, who are both passionate college football people, why it is that you are completely unmoved by this bowl season, and then I want you to be excoriated by both of them.
Look, the bowl season this year just hasn't captured me. It just hasn't. And this is where we could say, well, it's because of the college football playoff. I think all of it's a little broken. Like, let me say loudly, I believe that the college football calendar should, it just can change. They can move the Army-Navy game to Labor Day, which, by the way, makes a lot of sense. Celebrate the beginning of college football on Labor Day with Army-Navy. We all salute America. We all tell America how much we love it. We get into the season, get rid of conference championship games because they don't really matter anyway, and then get straight to a playoff. Like, when you have games of drama, part of the appeal of it is that the drama builds every single week. College football is out here giving you a playoff game and then 2 weeks later giving you a playoff game. Like, the fact that we're about to watch an Indiana team that hasn't played football in 20 days and that's going to be their first shot at the playoff is stupid. And so then all of a sudden I'm turning around and look, I've said for years, all the Sarsaparilla Motor Bowl, whatever it is in the middle of the day has to do is outrate a Sports Center repeat or First Take for the 18th time, and it's a win for ESPN. I understand that. But I turn these on, and I'm like, man, these games just kind of suck. Like, there's nobody there. There's no energy to it. You're watching 4 stringers that didn't play all year for teams you don't really give a damn about. Like, it just can't capture my attention. I would rather watch, Bodies in the Basement or whatever our new streaming show about random murders is. It just hasn't captivated my soul this year.
Fitz, normally I would vehemently disagree with you, but I even admit the famous Idaho Potato Bowl isn't hitting like it used to. And I don't necessarily enjoy watching LSU as a complete shell of what it was even in week 7 or 8 playing against Houston. But then I turn on the Alamo Bowl, and I see TCU walk it off on a 3rd and 20 in overtime against USC. And I see Ken Seals, the backup quarterback at TCU, Vanderbilt legend, former Commodore, transferred to TCU, who is replacing Josh Hoover, who's into the portal, basically sobbing, emotional, because for the final time in his college football career, he got to start a game and led his team to a comeback overtime win. And the scenes were awesome, and I'm right back in. Fitz. But in principle, you are correct. The problem is nobody has a solution on how to correct the calendar.
Well, and I think part of this is just a weirdness now where certain brands have become bigger than whatever happens at the bowl. Like, if I walk up to 100 people right now on the street in Nashville that barely watch college football and I say, have you ever heard of the Pop-Tart Bowl? A lot of them are going to say yes. If I ask them follow-up question, who played in this year's Pop-Tart Bowl? No idea. Have you ever heard of the Duke's Mayo Bowl? Oh, yeah, that's the one with the dump mayo on them. Awesome. Who played in it this year? Who played in the Cheez-It Bowl? If you go to most people, like, that's the funny thing is that the big bowl experiences, which are fun, I mean, they're fun. It's captivating watching, people eat Pop-Tarts in front of Pop-Tarts, which feels a little weird. But if we watch that, that's the appeal to it. It's not the football teams at all. So it is interesting that, maybe none of it matters. I do go back to one thing that Mike Golick Jr. always said to me, though. He said, look, I played on bowl teams where there were kids that had never left the state before. And all of a sudden they get the chance to go somewhere and play a football game, right? Like, so I think that we do have to remember that for the kid, like for the people that it actually matters for, the families, the kids, the boosters that want to watch that stuff, it's great. Like if you went to the Music City Bowl, you probably had a great time. Does the Music City Bowl matter to the casuals? No. Does the Music City Bowl matter to the people that went to the Music City Bowl? I guess. But if you're a Tennessee fan, you can neither plant your flag nor turn around and call abject disaster out of something that happens in a glorified exhibition game that nobody really gives a damn about. It's preseason.
Vols fans better than that. Vols fans are not handling a loss to Illinois well, where Josh Heupel's offense was held to a season low as far as the production, and the offense didn't see the field for the final how many minutes, Lucas? 11 and a half or something like that?
11:40. Tennessee did not touch the football.
Yeah, this offense. Fan base far. You lived and worked in Tennessee long enough to know better than that.
But let me tell you why I think it matters less than ever. See, you could sell me that 5 years ago, a result in the bowl game meant something, because part of the argument college football nuts will always tell you is you got extra practices. It's going to make your team better for next year. I would argue that team roster turnover now is so spectacularly large that whatever happened, the players that were dominated for the last 11 and a half minutes, half of them won't even be a Tennessee Volunteer next year. Like, there's so much churn and burn on rosters. By the time we get to next fall, looks like a totally different football team. And that's why, imagine the college football bowl equivalent for most of this would be like at the end of the year, if we're like, hey, in the NFL, Titans are going to play the Raiders. They're just going to play an exhibition game at the end of the year. We would say, who cares? Because next year, these teams are going to look completely different. That's modern college football, too.
Jason Fitz of Yahoo Sports with us on 104.5 The Zone. All right, the college football playoff matchup that carries the most intrigue to you is what, Fitz?
Indiana versus Alabama, and it's not even close because it forces the change of narratives. Like, at what point is Indiana not just this cute little plucky team this year? And at what point are we looking at it saying, wait, Indiana is a new powerhouse in college football? I mean, the fact is, let's look back at it. And I told Buck this. I got in the corner of my couch and I looked at Fernando Mendoza and I said out loud, all right, show me something. Well, Indiana did that. In fact, if you look over the course of the season, you could argue the two most impressive wins might be the Big Ten championship win over Ohio State and a win at Oregon. Two playoff teams were beaten by Indiana. And yet we're still all sitting out here saying, it just doesn't make sense. Alabama will beat Indiana because Alabama's Alabama. Well, that doesn't fly anymore. Alabama's played poorly over the majority of the last month. And there were moments even in a win over Oklahoma where you looked at it and thought, this isn't going to go well. Like, I was ready to talk my talk after the first 17-0 hole that Alabama was in. It was like, look at this. Alabama's done. Well, look, Alabama's not done. But Alabama today, right now, for the next 3 years, Indiana is a better college football program than Alabama is. And, we are going to learn that over the course of this playoff. We're going to learn that we need to start assigning new sort of responsibility to the way that we talk about different brands. It is time to change the way that we talk about what we've known and start talking about what we now know moving forward.
How many years is that going to take? Because we've got Nick Saban on College Game Day. I think this was before the LSU game when Vanderbilt hosted LSU, saying, I refuse. I'm not using exact quotes here, but Nick Saban essentially saying, I refuse to believe that a team that is talented as talented as LSU is will lose to a team like Vanderbilt. Not just because Vanderbilt was the doormat of the SEC my entire career, but also because the talent profile is so much greater between teams like Vandy and Texas, Vandy and LSU, Indiana and Penn State, Indiana and Ohio State, that at some point the talent gap has to catch up to them. I've said that about Indiana all year long because I don't know what else to say about the way that they're winning. I have no idea how he's doing this with 3-star athletes all over the place and whooping everybody's ass, basically, other than Ohio State and Penn State, and still beating them soundly in ways that Indiana football has never done to either of those premier programs in the Big Ten. How many years is it going to take for us to reset the way that we think about conventional college football?
I think it's going to take a non-traditional power winning a championship. Like if Indiana goes through, runs it this year, wins the title, we're going to have a conversation. And I think, look, with all deference to Nick Saban, who's a legend, I think part of his concepts that he talks about on game day sometimes are part of the reasons he no longer coaches in modern college football. Like the concept of I will have the best players and I will get the most out of the best players, and because of that, I will beat you. Worked for his entire career. Well, now the best players, Saban was a master. Saban had an ability to motivate the absolute best of the best to make themselves even better every single day that I think most people just don't have. So I agree. If Nick Saban was the coach of LSU, there's no way in hell they're losing to Vandy. That's fair. In the modern climate of college football, man, I think Curt Cignetti is to 3 stars what Nick Saban was for a generation to 5 stars. Curt Cignetti has an uncanny ability to make athletes that maybe aren't perceived the same way play above their skis, stick to the standard every day, be the best of themselves on every play. I watched that Indiana defense, and I think that's the most impressive part of the Big Ten championship game that didn't get talked about. They flew to the football. They swarmed to the football with a level of aggressiveness and speed that they don't get any credit for. I watched a team that wanted it more go out and win the football game, which, by the way, is the same thing they did to Oregon at Oregon earlier this year. So I think what Saban doesn't really get is modern college football greatness comes from, can I get the best of what I have on my field? And I think that there are more guys capable of doing that right now from 3 stars. 5 stars are harder to reach out to. 5 stars are harder to get through to. 5 stars are transfer portal in every year to go get the most money they ever. They're mercenaries for their families. I don't know that they are approachable the same way to the same type of coaching that Saban would give. So I hear Saban. I just think he's wrong in the modern climate.
For Vanderbilt fans, by the way, Iowa leading Vanderbilt at the half in the ReliaQuest Bowl 14-3. Diego Pavia taking some gnarly hits in this game so far, and Vanderbilt's offense has not been able to manage. Iowa has only allowed 110 passing yards.
We had an illegal kick. You ever seen an illegal kick, Fitz? A punter punting the ball after running past the line of scrimmage?
Oh, that's spectacular. That's a level of suck that you just got to like. That's a mental. We talk about mental errors all the time. That is on. I don't know how kickers screw. You got one job.
That's bowl season, baby. That's what brings you back, Fitz.
That's beautiful. Like I'll never understand how punters mess things like that up. And frankly, I'll never understand why onside kicks are so difficult. Like we hear kickers talk about like practice and how NFL practice for kickers. I mean, Buck, you watch this all the time for the Titans. Let's not get it twisted. NFL kickers are not spending 8 hours a day kicking footballs, right? To me, if they spent 8 hours a day like musicians do working on their craft, or they spent 8 hours a day just working on onside kicks, like that's the only thing I'd work on. I'd be the best onside kicker of all time. I'd be able to trick shot kicks the way that people can trick shot pool shots, right? Like there's got to be something to this. We need to work on kickers in their time.
I've got a Vanderbilt fan in the chat, Fitzy, asking if Clark Lee does this again next year, is he compared to Curt Cignetti at Indiana? And that's not the question that I want to ask you, because, of course, the answer to that is no. Vanderbilt would have to be in and win the Big Ten championship, go undefeated.
Well, that'd be hard.
Or, excuse me, the SEC championship.
Now, that would be impressive.
Go through an SEC schedule undefeated, win the SEC championship game, and be the number 1 overall seed in the college football playoff. No, Clark Lee and Curt Cignetti are not comparable at this point in time, even if the atmosphere in college football has created a circumstance that both can thrive under the current configuration of the sport. But what I will ask you is this. Does Curt Cignetti have to win a national championship for this to be the best college football coaching job in a single season you've ever seen?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
I think so. I think if it wants to be the greatest of all time, then we got to see Cignetti win one, especially when you've got the Heisman Trophy winner as your quarterback. You've got some NFL talent that's playing at wide receiver. They've been decimated on the defensive line with some bad injuries. Yeah, I think if this wants to be an all-time great, then yeah, Curt has to go out and win the championship, which, by the way, I'm not trying to start SEC Big Ten beef, but, when we sit here and say, oh, man, well, winning the Big Ten is way easier than winning in the SEC. If Indiana goes out and win the national championship, that'd be 3 straight years we have a Big Ten natty champion, right? Like, I mean, there is some level, and one of them's Indiana. So, to your point, I think Clark Lee, by the way, is still he's still a solid floor below what Curt Cignetti has done in Indiana. Clark Lee is going to have to make the playoffs for everybody to take this Vandy team truly seriously, and That's even last year. I will remind everybody, we spent most of last year in the first week leading up to the playoffs laughing about the fact that Indiana was going to get their ass kicked, right? And so it took two playoff appearances, and now there are still people everywhere telling you, I don't know, Bama's going to beat them. So for Clark Lea to be on the Curt Cignetti level, the best Vandy comp here would be, to your point, Vandy going undefeated, winning the SEC, getting the first seed in the college football playoff, and in my mind, at least winning a couple of college football playoff games. That would put Clark Lea on the Curt Cignetti train.
All right, Jason Fitz of Yahoo Sports with us on 104.5 The Zone. We're fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Miami, Ohio State tonight. Biggest spread in the college football playoff this week is Ohio State minus 9.5. Where are you leaning with this? Is Miami the biggest challenge Ohio State has seen up front, offensive and defensive line?
Maybe, but let's take the counter of that. Ohio State's going to press this defense in ways this defense just hasn't been pressed. Look, guys, I think it's going to be a blowout. Now, I was wrong. I thought Miami would lose in the first round. I didn't think they'd get blown out, but I thought they'd lose in the first round. They won, so I owe them a lot of credit. But I'll just come back to this very core question. Do we believe that Miami, even as good as their defense is, can shut down Ohio State to the point that they can then take advantage of it? And here's the follow-up. Here's the tougher part of the question. And to take advantage of it, do we trust Carson Beck to have the game of his life against that Ohio State defense? I do not. As good as we make Miami's defense sound, I want to remind everybody that Ohio State's defense, a few weeks ago, we had experts on Yahoo that were asking me the question, is this the greatest defense ever in college football history? And I laughed and said, my God, Miami would like a word from back in the day. But that shows you how regarded this defense is for Ohio State. I don't trust Carson Beck to be able to put up points against Ohio State. So even if Miami can throttle them down, which I don't think they can, this just feels like a 17-point win by Ohio State to me.
Okay, Georgia Ole Miss tomorrow. No Lane Kiffin. And this game was a thriller, was a shootout, 43-35. Georgia basically had to surge offensively late in that game. Do you think we see somewhat of a repeat of that kind of matchup between these two? How much stock are you putting in Lane Kiffin's absence for Ole Miss now that they've kind of sent Tulane packing and can, proceed in the college football playoff against other teams that could actually win a championship?
I will be consistent about Ole Miss the way I was about Alabama when Nick Saban retired. All the people that said, Kalen DeBoer is going to step right in. Okay, then you don't believe that Nick Saban was the greatest of all time. Because if Nick Saban's the GOAT, there's going to be a drop-off when you no longer have the GOAT. The entire college football sports community shut down for weeks to figure out how much money Lane Kiffin was going to get. If the man is worth $83 trillion or whatever it is to go over and coach somewhere, that means he brings tremendous value, particularly offensively. When you take that value away in this game, now all of a sudden you have an unknown at the head coach taking on one of only two coaches in all of college football that have won a national championship. I think the fact that we even think this game is going to be close speaks to how much so many people are rooting for Ole Miss. Like, look, for the story standpoint, I would love for Ole Miss to go out and just roll Georgia. Sorry to all my buddies that are listening that are Georgia fans. I'd love that because it's a fun, sexy story. You gave Kirby Smart a week to just look at what it looks like under a new head coach, and now you give this Georgia coaching staff that knows how to win in these situations. Georgia's going to roll in this game. Sorry, Ole Miss fans, but I think we are set up for several blowouts in the college football playoff, and this is one of them.
Jason Fitz of Yahoo Sports. Feliz Navidad, Fitz, and Happy New Year.
You know what? Happy New Year to everybody other than Buck. I hope, you know what, Buck? I hope you have a fine New Year. I hope it's a little bit, not quite what you want it to be. I hope you go to reach for the frozen grapes and find out that they're just soggy, okay? Mostly because then tomorrow when you come on air, you'll have a little bit extra edge for me for 4 hours on New Year's Day while college football is going on. 4 hours. And I'll just sit here and I'll eat my perfect frozen grapes being very happy while you're malcontent. That's what I need. It makes for good content. But for everybody else, Happy New Year.
If karma was a real thing, I would have been hit by lightning a long time ago. Joke's on you all. That's Jason Fitz. We will be on Fox Sports Radio. What is it, 2 to 6 Central Time tomorrow, Fitzy? Is that right?
Yeah. It's 3 to 7 Eastern. So yeah.
Okay, yes. So 2 to 6 locally.
Can I reveal a music industry secret to you guys?
You may.
I just thought of this, but it's New Year's Eve. So can I tell you the greatest New Year's Eve I ever had was the year that the band Perry played the Dick Clark's Rockin' New Year's Eve, hosted by Ryan Seacrest. Why was it the greatest? Because we didn't do the Times Square New Year's Eve New York performance. I'm about to give a secret here in the music business nobody knows. we did the West Coast show. All right. So every time you watch the broadcast tonight on Ryan Seacrest and you see them throw to the West Coast stage where there's all the fans and everybody's cheering for New Year's Eve, what nobody knows is the West Coast stage is taped weeks in advance because they need that buffer so that if anything goes wrong on the live show, they can throw to the West Coast performances. So everybody that you'll see on the West Coast has already performed on New Year's Eve. They can't work on New Year's Eve, so they have to sit at home on New Year's Eve because you can't take your kid because then people would realize the TV isn't live. So every single time you see the Ryan Seacrest show tonight, throw to the West Coast, just remember that that person is sitting on their couch watching the broadcast because they already pre-taped their performance. How do you like that for an industry secret?
Just rocking everybody's world. I think they toss it to Nashville now, don't they? Like in the last couple of years, I feel like they've tossed it to now Blake Shelton.
It depends on who's. CBS has the Nashville one, so I don't know if ABC. Seacrest is ABC, right?
Yeah. Seacrest is ABC. Rocking New Year's Eve.
Is that where Andy Cohen and Anderson Cooper drink on the air?
That's CNN.
That's the CNN one.
I think you're CNN. I don't know. That's one of the news stations. The Dick Clark one is the ABC one. So yeah, just everybody watch for the LA stage because there's some Nashville acts that are playing the LA stage this year. So when you see them, they're at home with their families.
Lies. All lies. Thanks, Fitz.
See you, buddy.
Revealing secrets. Bye, guys.
All right. Jason Fitz for 4 hours with me tomorrow, and we'll react to all the college football playoff action. Last call for phone calls for 2025. What? What's wrong?
Nothing. I was just laughing at Fitz. Just rocking my world.
I'm crying.
You're distraught? The scales have been removed?
Yeah, after today, I'm not going to see you guys for a whole year.
I think we could use a break from one another.
I'd like to see other people.
I've been doing that my entire life. I'm Buck Rising, 1045 The Zone. All right, let's put a bow on it for 2025. So it's the last show of the year because we are off tomorrow and Friday locally. Like I said, me and Fitzy will be on the air in Nashville. It will be a national broadcast, but it will be in Nashville on 104.5 The Zone because Fox Sports Radio, or The Zone is a Fox Sports Radio affiliate, so you can hear us tomorrow. In the middle of the afternoon, you can hear us on Friday morning reacting to all the college football playoff action.
And could I reveal an industry secret?
You may.
That tomorrow, while we're on the air, the show you're listening to, recorded weeks ago.
Stop.
Not even live, not even really here. I will be at home, nestled in my bed next to my kitties.
It does make me laugh when people hear those segments for the first time because that does occasionally happen. Do you guys get tweets like when we're on the air but not actually on the air? Because I will get a fair amount of people yelling at me for some opinion that I had in a pre-recorded segment that you're running as a best of.
Well, just seems dishonest by us.
Most of the best ofs I'm running are from this week because I had to run best ofs from last week. So I included me and Lucas's debacle about not knowing who each other was talking about. Where I was talking about Spencer Rattler, he was talking about Tyler Shuck. By the way, have you guys heard what Saints fans have done with Tyler Shuck? Have you guys heard the song "We're Getting Bumped Tonight"? We're getting bumped tonight. Oh, you got to look it up because now they've made it. We're getting shucked tonight.
Oh, so it's not bumped.
It is another word that I'm not allowed to say, but they have changed it. You should look it up. Just like Instagram, Tyler Shuck highlights, and they have made a whole song based off this dude. Yes, it's incredible.
Vandy has been held without a touchdown in the first half for only the second time this season. Happened against Mizzou the last time out. That game was 3-3 at halftime. Vandy ended up winning 17-10. 14-3, the Iowa lead at the half in the ReliaQuest Bowl. Diego Pavia sacked 4 times, Vandy with 8 rushing yards.
I think it's the second time he's been sacked 4 times in a game all year long, right?
Just can't block Iowa right now.
It was funny because yesterday all the Vandy's fans were like, yep, Tennessee took that ass whooping and gave up on the season. Well, now you get to be like, well, Vanderbilt blew their load in the last week against Tennessee and they had nothing for the bowl game.
I also have some moron in the comments section talking about that Kurt Cignetti needs to catch up to Clark Lee because Clark Lee's doing it in an SEC schedule. He's losing in the ReliaQuest.
That's got to be a troll.
I don't think so. I think it's just, I'm allowed to think that person is just an idiot.
You know that's your people. You know that's your people. Lucas tried to defend people.
My people?
No, Lucas's people. Lucas's people. They were his people.
Oh, the SEC truthers.
Yes, after the SEC had dropped 2 games to the Big Ten.
I
What
see.
now? What now? What now? You say something now?
What happened?
Do you have any rebuttal?
What happened?
You have a rebuttal to what happened to the SEC against my team in the bowl? Anything?
This should be a 7-3 game if not for an illegal punt. Like the punt went 50-something yards, but he booted it past the line of scrimmage, so Iowa got it basically in the red zone and scored to make it 14-3.
All right. There are phone calls there. I know you didn't want me to take one of them. Do you want me to take the other one?
No time.
I don't know. Who knows? Yeah.
Do we raw dog the last call of the year?
Yeah, I mean, put them both on at the same time. I don't care.
You want me to do that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's do that. Both of you at the same time.
You
Go.
have to lock one of them in, I think.
Oh, I hung up on one.
You hung up on both of them.
Figured you would screw that up.
Somehow I managed to hang up on both of you.
I looked and be like, okay, is he locking it? No, he's
No, I don't know how to lock it.
He's kicking them off the line.
You only ever taught me how to use one button on the phone. Asking me to do multiple things with the phone is not going to be a point of strength. What are you doing?
I don't remember how to lock it either.
Okay. Well, that would have been fun. Final polls for 2025.
Where the hell is the Star Wars?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody said that was a fitting end-of-year move for me to hang up on 2 callers at once whilst trying to take both calls.
One time.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. How would you describe the Vols' 2025 season? Robert, not this Robert, another Robert, says pretty average, which is what they need to accept. They are a good, not great program. Cristoforo says tailspin. Jack says good start, and then the wheels fell off. Some Tennessee haters said beautiful. One said awesome. Bo says disappointing, but better things are coming. Disappointing is fair. Disappointing is fair. With Joey Aguilar having the individual season he had, being a field goal away from beating Georgia, a very makeable field goal away, it is disappointing that your final record was 8-5 with the loss in the Music City Bowl.
I hear you on that.
What is the biggest reason Cam Ward has no shot at NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year? Tim says he plays for the team in Nashville. Camden says lack of primetime games and national recognition.
Yeah, nobody watches the Titans.
Yeah, and it just came on too late in the season.
For sure.
With consistent performances. Which college football playoff quarterfinal matchup has the biggest upset potential? The votes go to Bama, Indiana. I guess Bama would be the upsetting team in that scenario. 47.8% say it would be Bama.
It's a bunch of you SEC fools hanging out in the comment section. Get out of there.
Yes. The SEC's bowl struggles are a big deal, little deal, or no deal. 50% say no deal. It's the majority of the votes.
Little deal.
It's no deal. That doesn't mean anything. Bowl games. Please. Those are the polls.
That's the show. That's 2025. Thanks for hanging out with us. We do appreciate it. Be safe if you are out celebrating the new year. What, you have final thoughts?
No, I was laughing because Ross knocked his water over.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
Selling your home can be stressful, but it doesn't have to be. Get a guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate. There are no showings, no open houses, no stress. Work with the #1 real estate team in the U.S. and close with confidence. Go to markspain.com today.
Smashville hockey. Around here, it can sound like a language of its own. But hey, if you can pronounce Demumbrian, then names like Yossi, Shea, and Marchessault will roll right off the tongue. Nashville Predators, only in Smashville.
One of the largest sports books east of the Mississippi, Circa Sports Kentucky, is now open. Catch all your favorite games on an 80-foot screen with stadium-style seating and live VSiN broadcast daily. Circa Sports, now open at the Mint Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
My dad and I used to golf together all the time, but when he hurt his back, it was over.
To have your son want to spend time with you is amazing. That's why my chronic back pain has been so heartbreaking. Surgery, fused bones, long recovery. No way, not for me. A friend recommended stem cells, so I gave Kellum Stem Cell Institute a call.
I'm glad you're out on the course.
Yeah, it's really good.
Call the Kellum Stem Cell Institute today. Swing still looks just okay, though.